Welcome in, everybody. Today is May the 6th, 2022. My name is Kerry Holzman. I am a computer technology veteran with more than 30 years of experience in professional IT labor. That is, I have worked in corporations and for consumers, repairing, upgrading, and building computers since 1991, and I hope to bring to this channel a unique perspective not based on hobbyists or enthusiasts, which of course make up the majority of tech content here on YouTube. If you're interested in what doing the work is really like, well, stick around and I'll give you some ideas and things to think about when you're working at scale and you're held accountable and responsible for the thousands of dollars worth of equipment that your customers are entrusting you to, and there is punishment potentially, both financially and legally, if you were to cause your customer any sort of harm through any sort of irresponsible actions or incompetence. Now, I'm starting a little early today because there's a couple things I want to get out of the way. So thanks for joining me early. Thank you to Peter Laycock, who contributes 50 pounds at the beginning of today's broadcast. And Peter usually has a message. There it is. He says, "Good evening, Kerry, and everyone in the chat from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 58 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius." Hey, Peter, good to see you, my friend, and hopefully you'll stick around a little bit before you have to go to work. I ordered, so yeah, a couple of things. Coca-Cola has this new drink that you can only order online, and I don't normally buy into this marketing nonsense, but let's see if I can show you the website here. You could order it online only, and it was available May 2nd. So I ordered it on May 2nd. I received it 2 days later, so on May 4th. You can only get 2 cans per person, and apparently Coke was inspired to make a drink for gamers. So this is zero sugar. There's a game you can play. Obviously, it's intended for gamers. Supposedly pixel flavored, whatever that means. And it says this is the first ever Coca-Cola flavor born in the metaverse. Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Bite celebrates the everyday magic of pixels coming together to facilitate digital connection. I don't recommend you lick your pixels. It'd be strange to watch you licking your monitor. However, you can order this online for a limited time. It just started earlier this week. You have to click the Discover More button, and they're going to want to play a video or something. You can scroll this down. Somewhere in here, there's a way to get out of this. I can't find it anymore. If we scroll all the way down, boy, that is just a lot of marketing there, isn't it? There is a way to buy this. I just can't find it. How do I buy it? Can I buy it here? Go back to home, maybe? Shop. Shop now. Takes us back here. I don't see where I buy it. Limited edition. Oh, I know it's in here. It should be under Learn More or Discover More. Should be in here somewhere. You'll see this is called Coca-Cola Creations. This is their division that comes up with experimental flavors, and if they don't think it's going to do too well, they sort of do this little rollout, make it a limited edition collector's item style product, and if it happens to sell well, I guess they'll make it, right? And then like Starlight was another one that you can go buy at the store. This one you won't be able to buy at the store unless it does really, really well, which they're obviously not expecting it to do. I just don't know where the buy button is. Should be there now. Buy, here it is. Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Bite is here. Buy now. Yeah, see, they make you really look for it. And it just takes us back to the home page again. Well, this is getting very confusing. I don't see any other way to buy it. You can buy it. Maybe if we go to the store, shop now. Well, it just keeps taking us right back in circles. Limited edition, available May 2nd. That's your chat. There's a screen reader. Huh. Discover more. I thought it was under Discover More, but maybe not. Buy now. Well, that's how you're supposed to be able to buy it, but I'll be darned if I can't find the option. I'm sure it's in there somewhere. After shipping, you're going to spend about $20, and you're going to get 2 cans. That's all you're allowed. And what you're going to get in the mail is this. Boy, did they spend a lot of time and effort on this marketing. Let me bring this up closer to the camera so you can see it. So you get this nice little cube, which when you open, presents you with more graphics. Limited edition flavor. I'm going to translate that. That means we don't think you're going to like it. We're going to pull this cover off, and inside, the presentation out-of-box experience continues as you get this little card where you can download the game for the drink. And we keep going in here. We've got a sticker. It's important to have all your stickers so your games play faster. And then you've got the drinks themselves. It's a tall, skinny can, still 12 ounces. And there's all your nutritional information if the camera will focus. All right. Anyway, I don't really have any interest in zero sugar drinks. So I'm not even interested in what this tastes like. You can search YouTube for others that have done unboxings of the product and taste tests, and they do their best to describe it. Nobody's really been able to pinpoint exactly what the flavor is. Some people have said it's kind of a grapefruity citrus. It doesn't taste anything like Coke. But it's out there for a limited time. If that's your deal, check it out. I'm going to drop these cans into the refrigerator. I shouldn't have put them back in this box. So they can chill down and then they can be tried and see if they're any good. I suppose the worst thing that could happen is you would love it because you can't buy any more of it. So you better hope you don't like it. All right, those are put away. So it's just a little silliness there. I don't know what people are thinking sometimes. These marketing companies just, it feels like desperation. Bill Brulette just messaged me to tell me that the Corsair 200R case is back in stock at Corsair.com. I've had about 200 emails over the last 4 or 5 years telling me that Corsair has stopped making the 200R. Every time Corsair's 200R goes out of stock, you guys, a certain amount of you people become Chicken Little. An acorn falls on your head and you think the sky is falling. So for about the 300th time, I'm going to let you know these cases are for sale. Just because they're out of stock doesn't mean Corsair has stopped making them. Some of you have claimed to speak to Corsair themselves who gave you this information. The employee you spoke to, if that is true, was wrong, because here it is right now, May the 6th, 2022, at Corsair.com. There is the 200R. If you want to know how to find it, just go to Corsair.com. And then when you're here, click on the magnifying glass and type in 200R and press enter. And there's your case. Click once on it, and there's the page we were just on. Add to cart is available. There's a limit of 2 per person. Corsair is continuing to sell this case. And for those of you who have emailed me or messaged me, whether it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, or even just 2 weeks ago, to tell me Corsair says they don't make this case anymore, please stop contacting me with that bogus information. As you can see, the reality that I am showing you isn't words. What I am showing you is inventory available for sale direct from the manufacturer, and there is nothing anybody can say that can deny this reality. If you would like to join us in reality, you are always welcome to. If you ever choose to come over to the reality side of the world, we'd be happy to have you as company. But boy, oh boy, when people hear some negative news, they just embrace it like it's true, and they shout it out to everybody they know, and I'm just getting tired of it. So thank you to Bill Burlett for making me aware that this is up for sale. When these go for sale, they will go until they're sold out. And when I say sold out, we're having severe distribution issues because of the pandemic. This has been going on now for a couple of, is this news for you? Do I have to explain this? So when a cargo ship finally comes to port, and then it gets through customs, and it gets put on a truck or a train, and then it gets to its destination, and it gets unloaded into a warehouse, it's going to be a while before the next cargo comes in for that product. So take a look at the Scythe Mugen 5 Black Edition. Got an email, and this always happens, where Amazon says this product is out of stock and we don't know if it will come back in stock. And then there'll be a price, some outrageous price, and they'll say, look at what the price is on the Mugen 5. I'm like, that's not from Scythe. Look at who's selling the cooler. If you go on Amazon, Amazon has a lot of third-party coolers. If they want to charge you $30,000 for that cooler, nothing on Amazon prevents them from putting that price down. On the other hand, when you buy a product from Amazon, like let's say I bought a bunch of these coolers for $59.99, and I pay the sales tax, so now it's costing me $66, and I get free shipping. So I've got this for $66, and let's say I bought 10 of them. So I'm in it for $660. Now I want to offer them on Amazon for sale. As soon as the inventory runs out, then you can buy it from me. And for me to ship this to you, I have to buy a box, I have to get packing material, and I have to pay for the shipping. So that's around $35 for something like this. On top of the $66 I paid, I need to charge $100 just to break even. That's me doing all that work for free. So if you see this cooler for $135, in all likelihood, that seller is making about 35 bucks on that sale. That doesn't necessarily make them a scalper. If you're seeing anything over that, I would call them a scalper. But just because they've run out of inventory doesn't mean Scythe has stopped making the product, or just because you see a higher price doesn't mean Scythe is charging more. That's somebody else. Check the name of the seller. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is another cargo ship that's been waiting out at sea, most likely, is going to eventually get through customs. It's going to get loaded onto a train or a truck. You know, this is all starting to sound like deja vu. You know, I just said all this with the Corsair case. You can apply this to everything in your life during this pandemic. Cars. So I'm growing weary of the reactionary behavior of individuals who can't be bothered to take a moment to think about what they're saying, or to research simple things like who the seller is, or to verify the source of information they got independently. You know, instead they run to me like, first of all, if Corsair stopped making the case, don't you think I'd be one of the first people to know? You think you're going to approach me with that information first? That's wishful thinking. I'm neck deep in this industry. I have so much connection with what's happening in this industry, and you're just browsing the web. All right, so maybe you're just being thoughtful. It's not thoughtful. It's rude. You're assuming I don't know something when I'm in the business as a professional, and that offends me. 2, Scythe coolers. If Scythe stopped making that Black Edition cooler, don't you think I would know that before you would? So chances are, if you know it before me, the information you have is fraudulent, inaccurate, and I would appreciate if you guys would wait for verification before you run around screaming the sky is falling because an acorn hit you on the head. Could we do that? I might be asking too much. All right. Yeah, I'm getting tired. I'm getting tired of just repeating myself. I'm hoping I'll be heard by somebody, and that'll be one less I have to deal with. But I did not know that they were back, the 200Rs were back in stock, because they will come back in stock for maybe a few hours, and they will get sold out quickly. And so when Bill let me know about that they were back in stock, I have no idea when the inventories come and go. So right now the 200R is in stock. There is a very limited edition available. Not a limited edition, a limited number of them available, of these 200R cases. They don't have an endless supply. The pandemic is still ongoing. The distribution problems are still going. Whatever they got in their last delivery, that's what they're selling. If you want one, I suggest you order it the minute you see this video. If you're not watching it live, they're probably already out of stock, but that doesn't mean they don't make them anymore. You're just gonna have to wait until they come back in stock again, or buy something else. All right, so my friends over at FSP sent me this power supply, and I told them I'd give you an overview of this power supply, but this is a beast of a power supply. I mean, this is 1200 watts, and it's got a 92% efficiency rating, which is really, really high. And I want to read to you some of the specs on the back of this box here to explain to you what makes this cooler, what makes this power supply so special. All right. It features compliance with the newest ATX 12-volt version 2.52. Efficiency is equal to or greater than 92% at typical load. It's got an intelligent fan speed control. It has a quiet and long-lasting 135 millimeter FDB fan. It's got a ribbon cable design for enthusiasts. It has a powerful 12-volt single rail design, full Japanese electrolytic capacitors, Intel latest CPU ready, and full protections from OCP, OVP, SCP, OPP, and OTP. It's got a 5-volt standby circuit. It provides stable 3 amp output to enable high conversion efficiency. It's got reliable quality you can trust. Selected 450 volt, 105 degrees Celsius electrolytic capacitor provides superior reliability under intense current operation environment. It's got something called off-wet technology. This conformal coating, which protects the power supply and its internal components from dust, humidity, stains, and harsh environments. The Hydro PTM Pro series are tested to work perfectly even in a 95% relative humidity. It's also got the conformal coating from the inside out. The Hydro PTM Pro is covered with conformal coatings to guarantee reliable performance in harsh environments. The intelligent fan speed circuit control design with a 0 dBA function. That means the fan will turn off if you're not using more than 30% of the power supply's power that it's generating. It's got a server grade design with copper bars, joint mainboard and daughter board to increase conversion efficiency. It has a special heatsink designed for 12 volt switching circuit. It is a new heat dissipation design that conducts heat through a thermal pad on the bottom of the power supply, transforming the whole power supply chassis into a heatsink and cooled system airflow. 3.3 volt and 5 volt DC to DC module design. Not only maximize total 12 volt rating, but also minimize the voltage regulation for all rails. It's a fully modular design with ribbon cables. Neat build and easy installation to enhance cooling performance. And it's got user-friendly connector allocation to connect motherboard with 24-pin and PCIe pin easily, no cable mess in case. The Eco semi-fanless function is a switch on the back that when switched on, the fan will not operate until the loading is over 30%. The rating on this, the power efficiency, is 80 plus platinum. This is a 1200 watt power supply with a 10-year warranty. How many of you could use a power supply like this? Just out of curiosity. I'm looking around my office and I don't have a computer here. Maybe Threadripper. This would have been good in Threadripper, or Thready's Revenge, actually. The Big Beast build, could have used that. But does anybody here have a system that would justify this amazing monster of a power supply with a 10-year warranty? How many of you would buy it? I just want to gauge the audience reaction to a component at this level. And those of you who would buy it, are you buying it because you would actually need the power and performance, or are you just buying it because it has power and performance even though you don't need that? You understand that if you have a 1200 watt power supply and your system's only pulling 200 watts, you just wasted your money, right? You do know this. Tim Too Much says he has a 12900K and a 3080 Ti, so you need a 750 watt power supply, Tim Too Much. Why do you want 450 watts more on top of that? I'm just curious. Do you think that's going to benefit you? And if so, explain to me how. Paul Cleaver contributes £2, says, hey Carrie, it's good to see you. Hi Paul, thank you for supporting the channel. Mark Baggett with $5 says, happy Friday everyone. Yes, happy Friday everyone. It is a Friday. So what I'm trying to get at, FSP makes other power supplies and they're really focusing on the gamer crowd. You're looking at about a $250 power supply right here, which honestly is a great price. If you look at something from Seasonic at this wattage, you're probably going to be nearly double that price. You'll be in the upper 400s. So what I'm getting at here is it a good deal? Absolutely. Is it a good power supply? I mean, I'd have to test it to know for sure, but I imagine coming from FSP, I would bet it's a good power supply. With a 10-year warranty, they don't 10-year warranty bad power supplies. They'd go out of business if the power supplies just kept getting sent in at their expense and they kept having to replace them. they wouldn't be in business too much longer. So I'm sure it's a great power supply. My question is, what would justify 1,200 watts and $250? How many of you would have something that would justify this? Michael Dane says he's got an NVIDIA 2080 Ti, 32 gigs of RAM on a 10700K. It says 850 watts is power enough for me. 750 watts is more power than you're using, Michael. So yes, 850 is at least 100 watts over what you will ever use. Johnny Weld says my 850 power supply is all I need for my build. Catherine Anna Hauserman said my power supplies are maximum 650 watts. Now, is there any need to avoid this power supply? Price. $250 versus perhaps $80 on a 750 watt power supply. You can buy two 750 watt power supplies for less than the price of this one 1200 watt. Not that you could put two in one machine, but I'm sure they make machines where you can. But what I'm saying is, this is a great power supply if you need it, and very few of you would actually need it. So this could be a great power supply because you want it, because emotionally you desire to have an overpowered power supply in your system for some emotional need. I can't argue with emotional need. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and like I said, the FSP makes smaller wattage, more affordable power supplies. The reason I bring this up is, what if we were to give this away? How many of you in the chat room right now would want it? And please tell me why. You see, I'm working on a potential sponsorship opportunity with the folks at FSP, but I want to understand what the line of thinking is from some of my viewers. If I should offer products that are not practical, or that are niche products for people with super high-end systems that would be able to fully utilize it. Could you sell it to cryptocurrency miners? Yeah, I mean, that would be a good use for it, for sure. So far, everything I see in the chat is that you guys would have no use for this power supply. So is there anybody in the chat that would have a use for the power supply? And if so, what would that use be? I'm purely curious. Channel 0 says, I don't know if I'd need it or not. I do a lot of video encoding and have several external hard drives connected. So far, everything you've talked about is 500 watts, Channel 0. So unless you've got a high-end GPU, about the most any system will ever draw is 500 watts. And if you've got a high-end GPU, then 750 to 850 watts. If you've got two high-end GPUs, then you're in this territory. Could it be used for a streaming computer? A streaming computer needs about 60 to 100 watts. This could power 12 streaming computers. Natalie Kelly says for serious overclocking. Maybe. Brandon Stewart says the only reason I'd like to have it would probably be for a workhorse PC I plan on building in the future. Yeah, but the PC you build in the future will likely use a different form factor power supply as we move to version 3.0, so that while this sits on your shelf gaining dust as you wait to get around to whenever you decide to start your project, it will probably not be able to help you. So buying it for a future need, I think, would be a complete waste of money. But that's your money and you can spend it any way you want. But it's hard to provide what you need before you've got system specs blueprinted out. Jim KJ3N says, perhaps if you're seriously overclocking a pair of 3090 Ti's and SLI. Yeah. XRAT666 says he's got a 3090 and a 3950X processor. So again, about 850 watts is all you're going to draw. Would this power supply be too much for the beast build? Yes. Yes, it would. But what I put into the big beast build was an overkill power supply, because the theme of the big beast was to overkill everything. 8 terabyte NVMe drive, 256 gigs of RAM. And, you know, I think we put a 1300 watt Seasonic power supply in it. Everything was over the top because that was the theme. It was to be the big beast. It wasn't supposed to make any sense. It was just, if we fill this with the maximum of everything we can get, what's the most amount of RAM we can put in there? What's the biggest NVMe we can put in there? What's the biggest power supply we can put in there? That was within the budget. And that's what the big beast build parts were based on. That's how we selected the parts. It wasn't based on practicality. It wasn't based on any sort of pragmatic perspective of value. That is something, that is a project for people who have spare money and spare time to burn. It was a project of curiosity that cost a little over $9,000 for that experiment. Most people don't have $9,000 to experiment with. Not most people I know. I'd be glad to pay more and pay less over time due to the bills being less while I edit in game. That's not how it works, Polybius. If you have a power supply that's 1200 watts, the only way you can get to 92% efficiency is if you're utilizing, you'd have to be utilizing about 1,000 watts of this power supply. If you're only utilizing 400 watts, your electricity bill goes the other way. It's going to go up, because this power efficiency rating is going to drop like a rock. It's only power efficient when you're drawing, it's about an 80% load off of the power supply. So if you want to learn more about how power supplies work, there's certainly Google search terms that you can use and other YouTube videos that explain the power efficiency ratings, in that more is not always better. It can actually be detrimental, especially if we're talking about an electric bill and we're talking about an office that has 1,000 computers. It can make a massive difference in the electric bill. Ben Laird joins us from Scotland. Hello, Ben. Wouldn't this overpower the motherboard? No. It would not. If you have an 800 horsepower car, does that mean every time you get in it, it goes 800 horsepower? your computer, processor, GPU, that's your gas pedal. And the more you demand of your processor and your GPU, the further down the gas pedal goes. If you have an underpowered power supply, it's going to try and pull more power than the power supply can make or deliver, and that's going to cause your system to blue screen or even shut off. If you have a 1200 watt power supply, but you're just trickling 300 watts out of it, that is a power supply that, yes, will run cool, but will be exceptionally power inefficient. If you had a 500 watt power supply that you're drawing 300 watts from, your power efficiency rating would go up, and that would save you money on electricity and on the power supply. Robert Katnya with a €5 contribution says, "Hi, Kerry. Nice to see you again." Nice to see you, Robert. Robert joining us from Slovenia, I believe. Hey, Luke Greenia says he sent the usual $25 via PayPal. Thank you so much, Luke, as always. There's Richard Palmentier joining us. Hello, welcome in, Richard. Steve Mercure wants to know if 1200 watts is a peak rating or an RMS value. Generally speaking, these power supplies from big brand name manufacturers like FSP, that's going to be your RMS rating. I'd have to double check with them, but I would assume that is absolutely not going to be a peak. What he's referring to is, can the power supply hit 1200 watts for a brief moment? Or can it sustain 1200 watts indefinitely? This should be able to sustain 1200 watts indefinitely. Yeah, that would not be a peak. If I'm wrong about that, I'll be shocked. Just because the price of this power supply is one indicator, and the brand of the power supply is another indicator. Where you should be cautious are on smaller brands that you've never heard of that are selling really cheap. There's a way they get that price down, and that is by promoting its peak power. But generally speaking, most 80 plus rated power supplies, if it's truly 80 plus rated, whatever they display their power to be is their sustainable, because that's what the 80 plus is based on. That 80 plus rating is based on if you're drawing 1200 watts, or if you're drawing 80% of 1200 watts, where your power efficiency ratings fall. And Gamers Nexus has done a great job of explaining the power supplies. If you really want to get into that level of granularity on it, I would definitely recommend you check out some of their videos. Paul wants to know, why do they even make power supplies this powerful for people that have computers that are more powerful than yours? Does it occur to you that there may be people that have a computer more powerful than yours? Does it occur to you that there may be offshore mining rigs that are mapping the surface of the ocean as they float across the top of the ocean? They map the ocean floor. Do you have any idea how much computing power that takes to do that as quickly as possible? Remember, it can't be mapping the ocean floor slower than it's moving across the ocean. These things have to be synced up. It can't play catch up, maybe a little bit, but for the most part, you're looking at some pretty massive graphics cards and power supplies. And let's not underestimate customer stupidity. Customers see 1200 watts and they go, oh, that's more, that's better, I want my system to be better, and they buy it purely based on emotion and they don't buy it on logic. I would imagine 90% of any power supply over 900 watts is purchased by someone who doesn't understand what they're buying. And now if you're a manufacturer, should you tell a customer they can't buy it? It's not going to hurt you to have it. Your system that takes 200 watts will run just fine on this. Your electric bill's going to be a little higher, but if you just have the one computer, you probably wouldn't even notice it. If you have an office of 1,000 computers, you'd notice it. But if you want to spend $250 to buy a power supply that will never pull more than 200 watts, and when you could have bought a $40 power supply, you want to spend $200 additional dollars, why shouldn't I let you? In fact, if I make power supplies, why shouldn't I encourage you? There's a lot more profit to be made in a 1200 watt power supply. It's also 10-year warranty. Ian Gooch contributes 10 pounds, says, hey, Kerry, good evening and good content as always. Thank you, Ian. Jim KJ3N says a Threadripper system could easily require that much power. Yeah, as I already said. Thank you for repeating what I already said. What else? 66 Racer says 12700K CPU with a 3080 Ti, stress testing 590 watts. Channel Zero contributes $5 and says hello to Catherine Anna Hauserman. I need your help. I don't know who you are. So that's Catherine Anna Hauserman, and she is in the chat. That's who you want to speak to for a parts list. Steve H mentions he had an old Corsair HX 500 watt power supply that lasted almost 10 years. But what was the warranty? Was it a 10-year warranty? Because if so, then it failed while it was still in warranty, and it should have been replaced. This power supply has a 10-year warranty. It's guaranteed. It won't last almost 10 years. It will last 10 years, or it'll be replaced. There's Zdravgo and Tim Teal, Alej Depej, Peter Z. I also see Sarge Tech in the chat room, and Jonathan Fazani, Roy Star Man. Welcome in. Welcome in. Okay, so as I approach conversations with FSP, what size power supply, if we're going to do a giveaway, what size power supply should we give away? And how many should we give away? If you want to learn more about who FSP is and how long they've been around, you can just type in FSP Group Wiki, and you can read the Wikipedia article. This is a Taiwanese manufacturer. It is not Chinese. It is Taiwanese. We know in this industry that companies that manufacture things in Taiwan have better reputation for reliability and build quality. This company's been around a long, long time. I started in 1991. This company's been around since 1993. We don't hear about a lot of FSP, but FSP is trying to change that. That's why they've approached me. They want to know if I can get the word out to gamers that they're making power supplies that would be wonderful additions to gaming computers. And I agree with them. If you're looking at EVGA, if you're looking at Seasonic or NZXT, FSP is worth a look because you're going to see, in some cases, a superior built power supply with better specs for a cheaper price and a better warranty. So I think they're worth considering. Catherine Ann Hauserman says we should give away 5 550 watt, 5 650 watt, and 5 750 watt. 15 is a tall order for a giveaway. I don't think we would give away 15 power, so we might give away 3. maybe 5. Sidrafco is suggesting 750 watts to have for graphics if needed. Well, unless the graphics are 3090, then you're at 850. But for universal appeal for most people who have a graphics card, 750 would be ideal. And for people who do not use a discrete graphics card, 500. Lucas Dury contributes $5, says, good afternoon, Kerry. Do you still use TeamViewer or have you found something else? If you look on my YouTube channel here, you'll see a video titled Why I Don't Use or Recommend TeamViewer. The people at TeamViewer are violating the U.S. Federal Trade Commission rules against evergreen clauses in contracts. What TeamViewer will do is they'll sign you up for a 1-year contract and you say, oh, that's well and good. But when your 1 year is up, you get no warning. No warning. Just suddenly you're billed $600, $700, $800 from out of the blue. They don't check with you. They don't ask you for your consent. They claim you agreed to it in the contract. So now that you've been charged, then you say, I don't want this, I don't use it anymore. And they say, well, that's fine. After the end of your renewal, you have 30 days before your current contract ends in 11 months from now, or you can put to us in writing your cancellation. So in other words, you had 30 days, the last 30 days of your contract is the only time available to cancel your contract. And since they didn't tell me I had 30 days, they didn't tell me anything. I received no communication other than a bill. The FTC wants you to report all companies that do this. This is a clandestine contract using evergreen clauses that are very hard to cancel and very deceptive to consumers. GoPro is one of the worst offenders. If you've ever signed up for any GoPro service, good luck canceling it. They'll do the exact same thing. You'll pay for the service, you'll never hear from them. And then you'll see a charge 12 months later for the service again. You had an opportunity to cancel the service at any point with GoPro until the renewal, but they didn't warn you that the renewal was coming up. And your silence of not telling them not to is what they're using for your consent. I have challenged the charge from GoPro on my PayPal account. I have copied the FTC rules and I have reported GoPro and TeamViewer to the FTC, but the FTC is only going to respond if you report these companies. You know, they're going to go with the companies that are reported the most. The thing about TeamViewer was they closed my account when I told them I wasn't going to pay the money because they happened to try and charge a card that I had replaced due to theft. So I got lucky. So then they sent me to a collections agency and closed my TeamViewer account for lack of payment. And I said, I don't know what the rules are in Germany, but in the United States, you cannot bill me or send me to a collection service for a service you haven't provided me. In other words, if you've provided me with a year of service that I didn't pay, well, then you can send me to collections and collect your year of service that you provided. But what they're trying to say is you committed to a year of service in the contract, which I did not. But the evergreen clause, they assume you understand what that means. And it's not an excuse if you don't, because you agreed to it when you signed it. So therefore you agreed to owe us the money. And I'm saying, no, US law doesn't work like that. US law is you cannot charge a late fee for a service that hasn't been delivered. So if you're paying your cell phone bill in advance, and the cell phone bill says, if you don't pay it by the 1st, we're going to charge you $10. No, that's illegal. But if you're paying for the cell phone service from the previous month, it is legal. I mean, it's just common sense. You can't bill people and send them to collections and charge them late fees on services, on the promise of services to come. That is 110% illegal. You're going to lose in court. I guarantee You could probably be your own lawyer and sue them. You wouldn't even need to hire a lawyer. It's so cut and dry. And if you get the FTC involved, let the FTC sue them and fine them. So you can report these companies like TeamViewer and GoPro. PayPal said, initially we'll give you your money back and we'll investigate it, and then came back and said, we found on behalf of GoPro and we're taking the money again. And then you can click appeal the case. So I appeal the case, I copy the FTC ruling, I send it to PayPal. They say, okay, we'll put the money back again. We'll investigate this again. And then no sooner than that, they immediately kick back, we found in favor of GoPro. So I hit appeal the case again, and I said, show me my approval from GoPro. Show me what GoPro is showing you that you're basing your decision on. So PayPal is absolutely one of the worst. If you're a customer using PayPal, 1 out of 20 times in my experience will PayPal side with me. 19 times out of 20 in my experience, PayPal sides on the merchant. Now, Discover immediately sides with me 20 out of 20 times. 20 out of 20 times, Discover takes care of it. PayPal has some of the worst customer service of any credit card I have ever had in my life. But because it makes it easy to buy things online, places that accept PayPal, and I get some cash back on my purchases, I tolerate their horrific, draconian customer service, and I know every time I have to challenge a charge, I'm probably going to lose it. So in this case, $50 GoPro has stolen from me and lied to PayPal and are violating the US law and the rules of the Federal Trade Commission. And woe is me, I've lost $50. Now, I have since gone into my PayPal settings, which if you have PayPal, I recommend you do this. You can look under your settings to see who has permission to charge you in the future. You may have authorized this permission to dozens of companies and didn't even realize that you did it. I can't show you the screens without showing you my personal account, but a little Google search or just a little looking around in the financial areas of PayPal can show you who you've authorized to pull money out of your account, and just little X kicks them out. The other thing you can do, if it's out of control, is report the card as stolen, cut your card up, throw it in the trash, and ask PayPal to disable that card and to issue you a new card. You will be without your card for however long it takes to mail you another card. But then anybody who's got that old card number, that won't go through anymore. Because if people are charging your card without your consent, that's a stolen card. I use Instant House Call. I will never, ever use TeamViewer again. Never again. I've never met such arrogant, pig-headed, obtuse, and ignorant customer service people other than the ones that work at TeamViewer. I have talked to a lot of companies in my 30 plus years in this industry, and TeamViewer leads the pack of incompetence, ignorance, foolishness. They would rather make profits than care for people. So it's profits over people, and then it's profits over policy. So TeamViewer is purely driven by profit at any cost. That is the attitude of most TeamViewer employees, and certainly when you get into upper management. The TeamViewer CEO exploited COVID to the extent of making more money in that investment group than any other single person. And they'll say how much they helped people stay connected during COVID. No. People helped TeamViewer make record earnings during COVID. If TeamViewer really, really wanted to keep people connected during COVID, it wouldn't have been a record earning year for their CEO. So TeamViewer, as far as I'm concerned, is filled with a bunch of liars, manipulators, and deceivers who are acting in violation of the US law. As such, you will never see or hear me use TeamViewer ever again. In fact, I would sooner grab a can and a piece of string before I ever use TeamViewer again. There's no way TeamViewer can make this right. And I'm sure if enough people complain about TeamViewer to the FTC, they will investigate and assign a fine accordingly. I will say, when TeamViewer passed me off to their collections company, I first explained you can't collect on a service you haven't delivered. Furthermore, my account was closed, so I couldn't even use the service. They still kept after me, and I said, you're in violation of US law. I copied the FTC ruling, and I said, do not contact me again. And they haven't. If you have a bill collector coming after you, you should be able to tell them not to contact you again. And they should have to obey that. But GoPro, second, right behind TeamViewer. What a nasty, terrible company. You cannot talk to anybody at GoPro. GoPro wants you to send emails or text chat with their foreign service workers in another country, and they want to not tell you they're foreign service workers. They want you to think you're talking to an American. This whole GoPro thing is nothing but deception, and they only have certain operational hours. They're not open on the weekends and things like that, and certain business hours. So you have this limited window to even have a virtual conversation with somebody in another country about your personal information and credit card information, which, coming from a company like GoPro, which I thought were on the up and up, I can't believe the slimy mafia-like tactics they use, and how much and how hard they fight for $50. The subscription thing was $50. I don't even know where it came from. I don't remember signing up for it. I never used it. And I'm still currently battling with PayPal and appealing my case, and as I mentioned, reported it to the Federal Trade Commission. And that's about all I can do. If PayPal insists that they're going to give GoPro that $50, I hope GoPro can make that $50 last, because I hope none of you give them $50. I hope you don't buy their products. There's a lot of knockoff GoPros that are less than half the price that work just as well, and they won't try and scam you on subscriptions. They don't use evergreen clauses in their contracts, and so I hope that if GoPro takes their $50, this is going to cost them $500,000 from all the people who watch this video and are warned to stay away from them. They will be unable to calculate their entire financial losses because of the words I'm saying to the world with my reach right now, all to make $50 today. That's the biggest, most foolish business acumen. It's like you're dealing with a child who doesn't understand the impact of social media, the insignificance of $50, or the importance of customer service and sustainability with your current client base. If you're okay with pissing off your customers, those customers aren't coming back. And a customer that's pissed off, boy, they'll tell everybody about their experience. A happy customer might tell a few friends about their happy experience, but a pissed off customer will tell everybody. They did that for $50. That's GoPro. Bob R. contributes $20. He says, thanks, Kerry, for providing your continued excellent YouTube content. And this is for support of the community and what you do. Hey, Bob R., thank you. Thank you again for your continued support. I would not deal with PayPal anymore, but there's just, like when I ordered that Coca-Cola Bite, they accepted PayPal as payment. There are some places where I feel more comfortable using PayPal as my payment, mainly because I don't want to have to open up my wallet, pull out my credit card, type in all the numbers and the CVV code, and then, worry if that gets out, if the website gets hacked. On the downside, of course, is if a company is somehow getting authorization from PayPal, there's probably some little checkbox I didn't see that they can come back and rebill me again, to make checkout easier. It's a feature for me. Didn't you know that? We're going to take money from you so you don't have to go through the hassle of actually giving us the money. Don't get out of your seat. We'll just reach into your account and take it. It's a service for you. The next time I'm robbed, I want to make sure and thank the thief for moving all that equipment out of my house. Saved me a lot of work. What a twisted mentality in the world we live in today. False realities justifiable with some twisted, narcissistic, delusional psychopath who probably sleeps really well at night thinking what a great service they're doing the world of draining them of their finances behind their back. And they run companies and to some level are successful. But is that sustainable? Will GoPro continue these practices? And if so, will GoPro be out of business within the next couple of years? Time will tell, but usually there is a price to be paid. And it may not come overnight and it may not happen instantly, but it'll typically start to drag down. It'll trend downward and they'll panic and they'll do what they can to get that trend moving the other way. And sometimes they can withstand that and other times they just can't build back the momentum. All that to fight for $50 once a year seems awfully short-sighted. If I can afford to say, you know what, screw the $50, if I can afford that, and I'm not a multi-million-dollar corporation, I don't understand why they're fighting so hard for it like they haven't eaten in 4 days. It's very bizarre behavior from a corporate entity. And the illusion that they're successful, they must be hurting for money. Nobody that's successful could fight that hard for $50. They must be really financially hurting. That's all I can read out of it, because that behavior it's criminal behavior. But I'm not a police officer. There's not much authority I have other to let the authorities know. If the authorities are told enough times that it raises like, hey, we're getting a lot of reports about GoPro, then they're going to go do something about it. So if you're ever wronged by a company and you can't seek resolution with either the company or the credit card company, report them both to the FTC. I will be reporting PayPal to the FTC. I will be reporting them as part of the conspiracy to defraud me. And whether or not the FTC agrees, so the FTC gets complaints every day. So if you were the FTC, how do you handle the flood of complaints? And the way they handle it is we go with which company has the most complaints. Which one's going to make the biggest impact to help the most people? So if it's just me and a handful of other people complaining about GoPro or TeamViewer, they'll never get around to it. There's a bunch of people complaining about some other company like Peloton, then they're going to focus on Peloton, get that situation. Intuit was charging people $30. The low-income people where their tax return should have been free, and Intuit has been doing this for years. They were getting away with this for years, but it can't last forever. You can't keep breaking the law over and over and over. Intuit is a big, powerful, multi-million-dollar corporation, just got smacked down by the Department of Justice and is forced to refund, I think it's over $150 million to people that they defrauded by saying, hey, you can file for a free tax return if your income's this low, but then said it's a $30 filing fee. And they did that for years. Some customers went year after year paying that $30 filing fee. That was supposed to be free. That $30 was illegal for them to collect. And you can Google that. That's in the news recently. So these big, giant mega corporations, you've got some that do the right thing and you've got some that violate the law, and they will tell you what they're doing is legal. TeamViewer will tell you what they're doing is legal. GoPro will tell you what they're doing is legal. And Intuit will tell you what they're doing is legal, but they're just going to pay the fine without admitting any guilt. It's just the strange world that we live in. Just the fact that I'm paying the fine is absolutely no indicator as to my guilt. Oh, it isn't. Okay. Delusion. I don't know what multiverse they're in, but that's not the same reality I live in. If I see you paying a fine, you did something wrong. I don't care if you admit to it. You're just not man enough. You're not human enough to admit to it. They also can't admit to it, because if they admitted to it, probably half of their shareholders would sell their stock and the company's value would plummet. That's the cost of doing the right thing in America. George Schlaka contributes $5. Hey, thank you, George. Tim Teal says, so did you say house call? I said instant house call. Yes. Yes, I've talked about instant house call, for about 6 years now on this channel. It shouldn't be the first time you've heard of it. And if you do a search on my YouTube channel for Kerry Holzman instant house call, you should see several videos detailing that product, including how it's used, where you get it, and what it costs. Trevor Dunn says, Kerry, I got one of the keys for Office 2021 from your link, and it appears to have worked. There's no NAD screen for Office activation, but the product information does not show it activated. So assuming you follow the process that I demonstrated, which is you grab your Office 2021 using HEI dock service, and you download an ISO image, you install that image, and when the product is done installing, it should ask you for the product key. At that point, you provide the key that you received from VIP CDK Deals, and then it will say whether or not your product was activated. The window just doesn't go away. It responds. It says, congrats, or it says, sorry, the key didn't work. If you didn't get a screen afterwards, then you didn't wait long enough, perhaps, or something you did interrupted it, or something glitched. I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see what you did. But the order of events to do this successfully has to be followed, or your results may vary. You should be able to bring up something like Microsoft Word, and then go to File and Account, and then it should offer you activation status in that page. And you can, if there's an activation button, that activation button won't be there if it's activated. If you have problems activating it, please reach out to the folks at CDK Deals customer support, and they can help you with that. The folks at CDK Deals are running a special for us, which I can put up on the screen. That's a 30% discount code using my name, Kerry, at checkout. They got Windows 10 Pro for $15.70 after the coupon code, or 2 licenses of Windows 10 Pro for $31. A little bit of savings. You can get Office 2019 for $46.20, and what's that one? Office 2016 for $27. Is that right? Here's the thing. Office 2016 and Office 2019 both expire the same day Windows 10 expires in October of 2025. There's no benefit to spend nearly twice as much money for Office 2019 with regards to support or end of life. If Office 2019 has a bell, whistle, or feature that you need to have, well then of course the price difference is justified. Office 2021 expires end of life just 1 year later. So if you've got 2016 now, it doesn't make any sense to upgrade to 2019. They will both be end of life in October of 2025. Office 2021 will be end of life in 2026. After that, it's more than likely going to be a subscription-only service as Microsoft weans people off of the archaic perpetual model where you run out-of-date, obsolete software and you don't update it the way you're supposed to, wreaking havoc on the computers of others that you interact with, and you have no idea the damage you might be causing. Microsoft is highly motivated to secure things down. I think the big push for Windows 11 is going to be about security. We haven't gotten there yet, but because people are still going to click things they shouldn't click and get themselves infected with ransomware and viruses that then perpetuates those random ransomware and viruses out to the internet as their PC is the host distributing them after they're infected, Microsoft is taking it amongst themselves to remove the ability for the customer to infect themselves. And I think that is the ultimate goal of Windows 11. It's going to try and make it a little more Mac-like, where they're going to lock down some things you're not allowed to do because it's causing too much damage. So the subscription model is something every company likes. It brings in recurring revenue, and they are highly motivated to get there. And their attitude is this: we're going to charge you a subscription for the service. If you don't want to pay the subscription, take your business somewhere else. I'm sure there's a competitor out there that has a service that you can use. We're not the only game in town. If you want to use our product, this is what we're charging. If you don't like it, what do we care? We're not making any money from you. We have no motivation to try to mitigate your needs or desires if you're not a customer. Someone might say, I can use OpenOffice or LibreOffice for free. And this is true if you can tolerate that interface and lack of features. If you're one of those people that's like, hey, all I do is type, I don't really use any features, you'll be fine. On the other hand, if you're someone that's working in a collaborative environment or in a corporate environment, and you need to have support and you need to have the ability to share documents and have people work in teams, you pretty much have to have Microsoft Office. And Microsoft makes way more money from corporations than they ever make for consumers. Consumers are like a little pocket money, you know what I mean? Like, to Microsoft, they give you the operating system, you know, they give you, they say you Microsoft Word, but they don't really care about it. You could buy it or not buy it. Your $100 you spend, they don't even notice it. So when a big company like GE needs to buy Microsoft Office and they need 40,000 licenses, you know, that's a multi-million-dollar deal, potentially, just for one corporation. You know, the Fortune 500, that's 500 companies of a very large size. If each of those 500 companies needs licenses for Microsoft Office, that's billions of dollars for Microsoft. So tell me again what your thoughts were. Who are you? What impact do you have on the industry? So you can, obviously, if you don't like Windows, you can go to Linux. I've heard so many people threaten to go to Linux. Microsoft says, go. Go. They don't make enough money off. If every single consumer in America said, we're against Microsoft, and they switched to something else, it would make very little, I wouldn't say zero, but very little impact on Microsoft's financial quarterly income. Little bit, not much. But if a company like GE said we're switching away from Microsoft, that could be more harmful financially to Microsoft than if everybody in the nation switched and said we're not using it. That one company and that one decision has a bigger impact than all of us combined. So that's how business works. That's why corporate America drives our economy. It's what provides you with a job so you can earn money, and it's what provides you with things to buy. You understand? You yourself as the consumer, you're at the end of the chain. It doesn't go anywhere beyond you. You're at the very, very bottom of everything happening up here. This is all moving super, super fast, and down here, you get one. You know, Ford Motor Company makes 1 million Mustangs in a year. You bought one 5 years ago. So if you're sitting at Ford Motor Company as the CEO looking at how many units you're going to move this year of a specific model, and now you're at home and you're looking at how many units you're going to move at home, one every couple of years, that's a big difference with money. And as such, the industry is geared towards those that are spending the money. If you're not spending the money, they don't care what your complaints are. You're not a customer. So, and if you are a customer, you're not a good customer. You're not somebody that's drawing in millions of dollars year after year, not just one purchase one time. As a result, these Windows 10 and Microsoft Office keys for home users are dirt cheap now. Microsoft just doesn't care anymore. They want to get you on subscriptions. Adobe's already doing it. Spotify's doing it. Netflix, Amazon Prime, your cable company, your electric bill, your cell phone bill, your internet bill, you paying rent? You're on a subscription. So it's up to you to decide when it makes sense to own something and when it makes sense to rent something. All those people that would download movies and TV shows on the internet, they're all living in the past. All that effort it takes to locate the file, download it, hope it's not a virus, potentially exceed your bandwidth, it's like 1 terabyte for most cable providers. It was a reason people did that 10 years ago. But now you can get Netflix, or you can get Amazon Prime, or Hulu, or Paramount Plus, Disney Plus. You don't have to download this stuff anymore. You don't have to collect DVDs and VHS tapes. That's all a thing of the past. Now you just click, and the world is your library. You no longer have to hoard these things yourself. Boy, but that's a habit people just can't stop. I run into so many people who still want to hoard stolen media. I'm like, why are you doing that now? I have 150 CDs, music CDs. I have no idea what I'm going to do with them. No idea. Nobody wants them. I haven't touched them in 10, 12 years. I pay $11 to Spotify so I don't have to hear the ads. You can listen to Spotify for free. I create playlists of all the songs I want. Some of the songs I want are not on Spotify. But if I have the songs on my computer, then it can share them to my Spotify, mine personally. On the other hand, bands that don't want to participate in Spotify, I don't really want to support those bands. If they're that greedy, I don't need to give them any of my money. So in that case, I'm fine with me just grabbing their music, since if they're going to make it hard, then this is why piracy exists. But if they're going to make it easy, piracy is no longer justifiable. Piracy becomes more expensive and risky than just simply paying that monthly thing. Like, I have people that have dozens and dozens of hard drives. I go, what do you do with all these drives? Oh, I just like to hoard TV shows and stuff. So you're a thief, and you hoard things that don't belong to you. How much do those hard drives cost, do you think? Oh, I didn't pay that much. All right, well, what, maybe $50 each? Sure, and I see you have at least 10 of them there. Yeah, so that you spent $500 to store things you've stolen. That stuff's hard to find. Is it though? Maybe a long time ago. But any music album you've got and any TV show or movie you've watched is likely online available to watch. So I don't know why you would feel the need to spend that kind of money and make that investment in your time to sort and organize through that mess. But hey, it used to make sense. I understand. It used to make sense. It doesn't make sense anymore. For $500, do you know how many years of Spotify I could have? About $125 a year. That's 4.5 years of Spotify. What do you think the lifespan of those hard drives is going to be? And good luck finding anything. When I hear a song on the radio, I can pull up the Shazam app, and it'll tell me, by listening to the song for just a few seconds, it'll tell me the name and artist of that song. And there's a little button that says, do you want to add this to your Spotify? Boop, got it. I don't have to run to the record store. I don't have to jump on some news server or torrent site to illegally download a file that might be a virus or might be a version of the song that I didn't hear on the radio. It's a time suck. So, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you, it just doesn't make any sense to me anymore. Back in the day, totally understand it, would even encourage it. But now, the internet is your library. It's not going anywhere. You don't have to maintain it. and you can find what you want much, much faster than your own personal collection. But you do you. For the rest of us, welcome to 2022. Let's move on. Izzy Cassidy says, Carrie, I received an email from Cox Communications today that says, reset your modem for a 60% plus increase in speed on your preferred internet plan. Did you also get that email? I did not get that email because I don't have internet here in Studio B. So the internet access I have is shared from a neighbor using a wireless bridge. So they're paying the bill. The Studio A, I don't handle any of the regular bills like the internet bill there, so I don't receive those communications. Further, why would Cox send me the same email unless we both live in the same area and we both have the same make and model of modem? What's likely happened is whatever brand of modem you have got a firmware update through Cox. And in order for the firmware update to take effect, you have to power your modem off, wait about a minute, and then power it back on again for the firmware update to take effect. With the firmware update in effect, it should then offer you greater speeds according to that email because you have the newer firmware that wouldn't have done you any good being the area that you live in. If you'd have gotten the firmware update earlier, it would not have benefited you until the internet in your area was upgraded first. So what they're saying is, we have upgraded the internet in your area. You are a customer that has an affected modem that must be upgraded through firmware for you to take advantage of these higher speeds. So when you have a chance, unplug your modem, wait 1 minute, and then plug it back in again. That is not a scam email. There's nobody you need to talk to, and there's no reason that you should question it because there's nothing that you could do that would be harmful. Your modem is designed to be powered off and powered back on, and that's all they're asking you to do. And I don't understand why you would be skeptical, or what would the scam be there? They're not asking you to provide them with any information. And if you're curious, you can go to speedtest.net and you can run a speed test to see how fast your internet is. Then unplug the modem, wait a minute, plug it back in, give it about 2 to 3 minutes to reinitialize with your service provider, and then run speed test again and see if you see a 60% speed improvement. Izzy says, I'm in Arizona also. Okay, so the state of Arizona. State of Arizona is 113,998 square miles. So that's 113,998 times 113,998. So that's a total of, it's over 12 billion square miles, if I'm reading this number correctly. Yeah, it's over 12 billion square miles. So Cox has to lay down cables into the ground. Now granted, they're not laying cables across most of the open desert area, maybe connecting two major cities or metropolitan areas together. So Arizona makes up a large population in Tucson, a large population in Flagstaff, Prescott, Phoenix, of course, all of the subdivisions of Phoenix. And so depending on where in Arizona you are, what side of the street you live on makes a difference. You could live across the street from me and have fiber optic, whereas I could not have fiber optic. because they have not put the infrastructure in. They don't snap their fingers and it just goes in. They have to start somewhere, and it takes time to spread that out. Plus, there's always new construction going on because we have a massive housing shortage. And so Cox has also got installers running cables into neighborhoods that don't yet exist. They're being built. So they've got the streets laid out, maybe they've got the sidewalks and the sewer, and then that's part of the infrastructure along with electricity. The power company has to come out. Then what they have to do on top of that is to go to existing areas that they already installed cable into, pull that, you have to cut down into the street, you got to close the street down, or at least block part of the street, cut into the concrete, pull those cables back up and dispose of them, and then run your new fiber optic cables. As you can imagine, it's time consuming and expensive. So because you live in Arizona has nothing at all to do with anybody else that lives in Arizona. Nor does it have to do with the brand, make, model, and age of your modem and how that may affect whatever recent change Cox did to your specific region. That's it. That's all it is. It's like, oh, you're from New York? I'm from New York. You know Bob? There's a lot of Bobs. Yeah, as a matter of fact, sure, okay. What's funny to me is I have a number of retired customers who live, well, I know 3 retired customers. 2 live in kind of a richer area, and 1 lives in just like a newer area, but mostly a lot of retired folks, but it's all new construction. These 3 folks all have fiber optic going to their house. And I'm like, why is Cox Communications putting the fiber optic in for the people who will use it the least? I'm sitting here struggling to get by on cable internet. That's why my broadcasts are not in 4K. I can do 1080, but the minute we go 4K, everything gets all janky. Boy, if I had that fiber. And nobody who's got the fiber knows that they have it, or they don't really understand what it means. They're not power users by any stretch of the imagination, and they would be fine having the internet I have, just the regular cable internet. And I would be so happy if I had their fiber, but I don't want to go live in those retirement communities, nor can I afford to live in the richer areas that have it. But I just find that quite ironic. Check my email. All right, let's see what we have. Oh, Richard Palmentier sends a $20 Amazon gift card with Luke Renia submitting $25 via PayPal. And Don Dre from Raleigh, North Carolina says, I bought 5 Acronis licenses. Thanks for all you do. Here's a $25 Amazon gift card. Very cool. Thanks, you guys. Thank you to Richard and Luke and Don. You guys rock. Thomas Baggenstow wants to know, why is fiber better? With cable internet here in Phoenix, you can get 1 gigabit of data download, or in other words, receiving, but your sending is limited to a maximum 35. So 1,000 to receive, 35 to send. 35 is what fraction of 1,000? With fiber optic, I can go 1,000 in both directions at the same time. So now if I am sending data like I am right now broadcasting, you watching me, you're downloading data. Me, I am uploading data. You understand? Data has to be sent before it can be received. Sent being uploading, receiving being downloading. If you're watching movies off Netflix, you're receiving. If you're uploading movies to Netflix, you are sending. Most consumers consume. They never send anything other than, can I have that? A request to grab. It's a small little bit of data. And then the server responds and it floods your modem with the 4K version of whatever movie, in the case of a movie. If you're a creator like me, then the things that you create, they need to go out online, but they're only going up at a speed of 35. So I can send data at, let's say, 35 miles an hour, but I can receive data at 1,000 miles an hour. That's a pretty significant gap between the send and receive speed, if we use a different thought process for how to compare them. Can you picture 35 miles an hour in your head? Can you picture 1,000 miles an hour in your head? Like when I say 35 miles an hour, you probably thought of a car. And when I said 1,000, you probably thought of a military jet. So I get military jet speeds receiving, and I get Volkswagen Beetle, 1964 Volkswagen Beetle speeds when I want to go somewhere. So, of course I want fiber. Imagine what I could do with fiber. 8K content could be uploaded live. Someday, we'll get there, someday. GM says he's got a 500 down, 500 up because he has fiber. You know what, I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with it. I don't need a gig down. People who need a gig down probably have number of people in the house watching movies at the same time. So if you're running Netflix in each bedroom of a 3-bedroom house, not to mention maybe having something happening in the kitchen. Some people have like a television in their kitchen. Then some people have a television, of course, in their main living room or family room. And if all of those are downloading at the same time, you need that gigabit or it's going to stutter and buffer. Or your resolution is going to be significantly dropped in order to make room for everything. Johnny Weld says he's got 1,200 down and 1,200 up. And are you not in the United States? Are you somewhere outside of the US? Countries like South Korea far excel their internet connection. If you saw what people in South Korea are getting for their internet connection, you'd realize how technologically backwards the United States is. And I'm talking on their phones, on their home internet. Yeah. Zadrafko said, I sent you a $25 Amazon gift card and they said they would send it in 5 minutes and it's been a long time. What email address did you send that to, Zadrafko? I think you've sent them before, but I have not seen an email yet from you. That usually happens if the email address is entered incorrectly. So do double check the spelling of the email address. I'll put it up on the screen here for you, because when you send an Amazon gift card, Amazon says what's the email address of the person you're sending it to. And if you get anything typographically incorrect, if there is an extra letter or a missing letter, it will not arrive. If the letters have been switched around, if the E is where the Y is and the Y is where the E is, it has to be exact. It doesn't have to be uppercase, but the letters have to be specifically in this order, or any sort of typographical error, it will not be sent to my inbox. Of course, you can pause your screen if you want to keep that on the screen, but I want to just keep moving here. So we'll keep moving on with today's subject matter. Richard Palmentier said he's getting 200 megabits per second up and down with 5G. That's impressive. Andrew Epperson says, send a package out by jet, receive it by car. No, you've got it backwards. Sending is uploading. Uploading is the car. You can send a package via car, and you would receive the package via jet. You have it twisted the other way around. Receiving is downloading. Bob R says, what, a family doesn't watch TV together? Yeah, I don't think you've been around a family, a young family. Husbands and wives don't even watch the same TV shows. I've seen them have 2 televisions in the bedroom. One faces this way and one faces that way. And so one person in the relationship lays in bed looking at this show with their headphones on, and this person lays on their side looking at the television on this wall with their headphones on. The kids are in another room playing video games, playing on their phones, or watching TV. And this is a normal American household for a young family today. I think Kumail Nanjiani, who is a pretty famous actor, has been on the talk shows like Jimmy Fallon after he was recently married and discussed the fight, that arguments he would get into with his wife over what show they're going to watch. And they did exactly what I described. They put a TV on that wall and a TV on this wall, and they each watch what they want with headphones on, but they're still together in the same room. Yeah, it's pretty common if it's a young family. Yeah, you got to wonder if maybe this technology's gone too far, where people are so addicted, they don't really make much time for each other. It's just all about getting their own fix. But, it's not my responsibility. I'm just observing. And of course, it doesn't affect everybody, but you will see that more in younger families for sure. It's pretty common. I mean, in my era, parents would throw their kids in front of the TV so they didn't have to deal with their kids. Now, parents don't even have to do that. Just give them their cell phone and send them off. And those kids go around, but some of them bullying people, hacking people. The parents have no idea what a nasty little monster their unsupervised child is online. And that's half the reason we have these problems that we have. Especially, you've seen it here in the chat room. Those are just unsupervised children, or they're adults with children mindsets that regardless should be supervised. As a result, people are just disconnected from one another, even though they could be right next to each other within touching range. They're not connected, just in their little bubble. I had no idea when I was growing up that this is what we would call the future. I would love to have seen a movie in the 1970s or 1980s that predicted this. Even in the wildest imagination of the most creative writers, could they have not have come up with anything so dystopian and so ubiquitously evil? But man, if somebody had, I bet we'd have watched that movie and said, wow, can you imagine if that ever happened? Like when you watch Terminator or you watch some other sci-fi, you go, can you imagine if that really happened? And then it really happens? What would you think then? Judy Manning contributes $10. Judy received one of the veteran giveaway computers. She says, hey, Carrie, I got the PC today. Thank you so much. Again, I can't thank you enough. Well, thanks for letting me know you got the computer. It's plug and play ready. It's already got all the Windows updates. Windows has been optimized, activated, and it has a solid state drive. They're pretty fast machines. It's not Windows 11 compatible, so you will have to look to replace that computer after October of 2025. So you get a little more than 3 years of usable life in it, and I hope it serves you well during that time. And I hope after October of 2025 that you will recycle it and get something else. But I appreciate the update. I'm glad to hear that you received it safe and sound. And a thank you for your service, of course, to all our military veterans. John Jack Wilson sent in $100. Wow, very kind. Thank you so much. I see Zdravko forwarded me something from Amazon. Looks like a $25 gift card. I don't have it from Amazon, but I do have your forwarded message. So I guess we just have to wait until Amazon kicks it out. You know, usually takes a couple minutes. But thank you for going through that effort. It shouldn't be that hard. We'll check it again in a little while. The reason I have these parts out here is I built a computer in 2015 that's an 8-year build. And that computer, they want upgraded now. I thought it was an 8-year build. It is, but it's only been 7 years. It's been more than 7, but yes. Well, then it's a 7-year build. No, it isn't. I don't understand. Okay, let me explain. I built this computer in 2015. It's an 8-year build. And I hope you're sitting down for what I'm about to tell you. This computer has never had a problem and currently does not have a problem. Why do they want to upgrade? I'm getting there. This is the sit down part. For the first time, and I mean it was bound to happen sooner or later, this customer loves Windows 11. Wait, what? This customer loves Windows 11 and finds it completely superior to Windows 10. And that system from 2015 is not letting this person install Windows 11, saying it is not compliant. Somebody who wants Windows 11? Yes, that's okay. There's going to be more and more people who see benefit to Windows 11 over time. This just happens to be the first person I have ever encountered in real life, not online, in real life, that prefers it. And there's nothing wrong with it. If they want to run Windows 11, that's fine. So the question is, will the machine from 2015 actually be Windows 11 compliant if perhaps there's a BIOS update and a TPM option in the BIOS? I'd have to look at it to be sure. However, even if it has that option, the customer needs to disconnect the computer and bring it to me. And if they're going to bring it to me and all I do is flash the BIOS and turn a TPM feature on and now it's Windows 11 compliant, their 8-year build has less than a year left before they're going to bring it back and say, okay, I want more power because I'm running Windows 11. I want more processor. I want more RAM. We might as well do this. Customer's going to drop off the computer. I'm going to yank the motherboard out of it. I'm going to reuse the Corsair 200R case. I'm going to prep this motherboard in advance. This is an 11900K with a Scythe Mugen 5 Black Edition. 64 gigs of RAM with a B560 HD3 board. And I'm going to take the customer's NVMe drive out of their motherboard and I'm going to plug it into this motherboard. I'm going to put this back into their case and hook it up with their power supply. I've got this little NVMe drive just so I can configure the board. If I'm probably not going to reinstall Windows in it. I'll ask the customer if they want me to put Windows 11 on it. I think what they want to do is upgrade their Windows 10 into Windows 11, carrying over all their data and programs. So this is just something I'm using. I may not even use this, right? I need to upgrade the BIOS on the board and do other things in the process. And if I want to test the board, I need to basically install Windows 10 on it so I can run the testing software, though the testing software rarely ever fails. So I'm on the fence about whether or not I'll use this. This will go in to the customer's old board that we're taking out from 2015. That will be put into another case, and that will be a giveaway here on the channel. What are your thoughts? Hey, there's Madi Yoel joining us in the chat room. Thank you so much, Madi. Did I not bring out a Gatorade? This whole time I've had nothing? Oh, that won't do. I got thrown off with the Coke bite. Drinking Pixels, the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. All right. I do recall Intel CPUs from 2016 forward all had the TPM option in the CPU. And Intel CPUs prior to 2016, some had it and some didn't. Regardless, the system's 7 years old, and if they want to run Windows 11, we're so close to getting to 8 years at this point. They've got no complaints. The system's never, ever had a problem. And rather than try to convince the customer, hey, let's update the BIOS, let's see if we can turn on TPM, only so the customer can come back in 10 more months or 8 more months and go, is there anything we can do to make it faster now that I'm running Windows 11? We might as well just do this now. You know what I mean? Just be done with it, and let's just take the old hardware and let's use it in a giveaway on the channel. Unless any of you have a better idea, if so, I'd like to hear it. In some cases, you can get Windows 11 to install, but it won't download any updates. It'll say your CPU is not supported. So I don't know why Microsoft allows that, but it's like a tease. Jim says, won't you need a new OEM key for Windows? Yes, I will. And it's going to cost me, that's the wrong button. Where is it? What did I do with it? There, $15.70 for a new key. Now, this is a $500 CPU. At least it was when I bought it. Here's the thing on these CPUs. You want to see something really crazy? Because these have dropped in price dramatically. Let me go back to that screen capture that I accidentally clicked on. What do you see here? 10th gen i9, Intel Core i9 10900K, $389.99. What do you see here? Intel Core i9 11900K, that's what I'm holding in my hand. Exactly the same price. What does that tell you? What if we go back 2 generations to a 9900K? That must be super cheap, right? No, they don't make it anymore. So you're looking at $622 for any remaining stock. Because once the stock is gone, oh, and there's only one left. Once that's gone, they're gone forever. So as the chip becomes rarer, the price goes up. Here's a 9900K for $750. $50, used $499.88, because they do not make it anymore. The supply is very, very limited. That drives the price up. It has nothing to do with value. This has to do with supply and demand. So, I think I paid the 11900 used to come in this fancy plastic CPU box like this over here. That's what Intel packages whatever their flagship CPU comes in. Like the 12900K is in a fancy box. When the 13900K comes out, the 13900K will be in a fancy box, and then the 12900 that was in a fancy box will now be in a simple cardboard box. This was an 11900K that sold for $500, and this is the 11900K that sells for $389. So partly they're saving money on this ridiculous and stupid packaging, but you can buy the 11900K or the 10900K for the exact same price, and if you benchmark them side by side, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. So the 11's a little bit better, but if I had a choice between a 10 and an 11, they both use the same motherboard anyway, or they can. I can use this B560 on an 11th gen or a 10th gen. And if the price is the same, of course I want the newest one, right? New is always better. But if the 11th gen was sold out and I really wanted to build a system now, I could do that 10900 and I'd be hard pressed to know the difference. Let's face it, most of you, the hardest thing you ask your computer ever to do is to run benchmarks. And without those, you would have no idea, because the computers are so fast now, they're pretty much just waiting on you. With a few exceptions, there are some of you out there, a very small portion of you, that really do utilize the resources of your computer, especially if it's an older computer. But I'm specifically referring to the group of you that have these latest, 9900K, 10900K, 11900K, 12900K. I don't think 95% of you, if you put a room of you together with 9900Ks, 10900Ks, 11900Ks, 12900Ks, and let you run whatever program you want that's not a benchmarking or measuring software, and I had you tell me by using each computer which one was which without looking at any specs, you just had to feel which one was the 11900K from feeling. I would ask you to say, label these computers in the order that you think each one is. So here's an 11900K post-it note. Stick it on the computer you think is the 11900K. And the same with the 10, the 11, and the 12. I bet you more than 80% of the people will get that wrong. It's all up in here. It's all emotional. But regardless of that, when I ran the 11900K, it did feel faster to me. As a result, I upgraded my personal office computer to an 11900K, but that was coming from a 9900K, so it was a 2-generation difference. And it just felt like when I clicked on things, they just kind of popped up quicker. But do they, or is that in my head? I built one for Madi in the chat room, and now we're going to build one here. A lot of this is purely psychological. Unless you have an actual application that utilizes these resources, most of you would not be able to tell the difference based on how it feels. Cerise says, if you went from a 6700K to a 12700, it should feel real good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 6th generation jump in chip? Oh, for sure. But a 2 or 3 generation jump in chip? Not so much. But if you went from a 6700K to a 10900K, an 11900K, or a 12700K, I don't think you could tell them apart. They would all be significantly and markedly faster, and that's all you would know. So you wouldn't really know just how much faster a 12700K is because you skipped over the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, right? So the minute you go about 4 generations ahead, suddenly you can see a difference. You will feel a difference. But that difference is going to impress you. And the higher up you go, it's not like you're going to get impressed anymore. So if you went to a 10th generation chip, you'd be impressed and you'd be like, wow, this was totally worth it. But your reaction would be exactly the same of any generation of chip beyond that. You wouldn't say, wow, this is so much faster. No. Your reaction and your response has no point of reference other than the 6700K. So therefore, anything from 10th gen, 11th gen, or 12th gen is going to make a very big impact on the perceived performance by how responsive your computer becomes. But you won't be able to identify whether the 12700 was really the best value when you could have gone with a 10600, spent less money, and still exactly feel the same, like, wow, this is like way faster. And then you could wonder, I wonder what a 12700 would be compared to this. And it wouldn't be much. You understand? So a lot of it's emotional based. When people get benchmark numbers to run processes that consume resources they don't actually use in real life other than in running benchmarks, that's a completely fabricated reality that doesn't truly exist. Because if you don't use the computer like that, then simulating using the computer like that means nothing to the performance you're actually going to see the way you use your computer. As such, buying something that's does really well in benchmarks isn't going to have you type any faster. Your typing speed and accuracy isn't increasing. Your productivity of what's reliant on you to do. What I'd like to do to these benchmark enthusiasts, I'd like to benchmark them as human beings, and I'd like to see if their performance would impress me. It's kind of elitist and snobby, right? This computer doesn't run these benchmarks very well. Well, I don't think you would run my benchmarks very well. I don't think you would. If I benchmark you the way you benchmark your PC, and you're disappointed with the results of the amazing output of that computer, I wonder how you would like it if I treated you that way. Just something to think about. I amuse myself. Don't mind me, I'm just amusing myself. I like to take these M.2 screws and put them into the standoffs so they won't get lost in the years ahead when the customer wants to upgrade to the empty M.2 slot. We've got 2 of them on this board, we're only going to use 1. Or even if we are going to use 2, we know exactly where the screws are. Gigabyte used to automatically ship the motherboards with the screws. For some reason, now they put them in these plastic bags, I guess because they hate the earth and they want to see the earth get destroyed. So they want to add as much unnecessary plastics into the environment. It's the only reason I can think of. It certainly isn't cheaper to do it this way. And this stuff will take a very long time to biodegrade, probably 1,000 years, just for this one little screw that could have been installed at the factory. They're just anti-earthers. I don't know what these companies are thinking. Gets me worried sometimes. Probably overthinking it. There we go. All right, we got our documentation for the i9 11900K processor. I'll throw that in the motherboard box. Michael Dane sends $10 via PayPal. Still nothing from Amazon, Jadravko, but check it from time to time. Thank you, Michael Dane. You're the man. He's the man. I like to use my little suction cup method that I invented. So if you see anybody else online doing this, you know they learned it from me. That'll hold on to that chip, makes it real easy to put this chip in here. Rotate it. Rotate this the right way. There it goes. And we'll set this down. I guess I'm going to take this off. Usually I let that pop off, but with the little suction cup there, go ahead and set that down. Once we've locked the CPU into the socket, then I can just slide the suction cup away and put it right in here. These are in my Amazon store if you're looking to buy them. They're really inexpensive and super helpful, especially when removing these chips. But it also makes putting them in a lot easier too. They are not designed for this purpose, but that was what my MacGyver mind decided they were going to be used for, and it's worked out really well. I'm proud of myself. It's like the leaf blower. I just came up with it. I tested it, measured things, did my research, and said, how come nobody else is doing this? And I come and make a video about it to show you how safe and easy it is. And there's still a fraction of people out there that refuse to accept reality. It's like someone talking about a solid state drive dying from too many writes. Never seen that happen in my life. I've heard lots of stories. Never met a person who's ever experienced a solid state drive that will no longer write data, but will only read data. That's what happens. If a solid state drive is if it's written beyond its ability to save any more data, it doesn't fail, it just becomes read-only. Do any of you have a solid state drive in read-only mode because you've written so much data to it? Because the way people talk about it online, you'd think this happens all the time. Not only does it not happen all the time, I have never seen it in my entire life in a career where I look at hundreds, if not thousands, of computers a year. Just luck, I guess. There's Ryan contributing $2 Canadian, says, happy Friday, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. Lucas wants to know, what leaf blower do I like? I like the Ryobi tools because they use the same battery. So I have a Ryobi hot melt glue gun. I have a Ryobi chainsaw. I have a Ryobi table saw. I have a Ryobi vacuum. I have a Ryobi hand vacuum. I have a Ryobi hammer drill. I have a Ryobi regular drill. I have a Ryobi impact drill. I have everything Ryobi because they all use the same battery. I have about 14 Ryobi tools in 3 batteries. I just swap the battery around. I never use more than one tool at a time, so I can just buy the tool for less money. You can buy the tool with the battery and a charger, And that adds about $50 to $75 to the price of the tool. A Ryobi cordless drill is like 20 bucks. You know, the hot melt glue gun. I have a Ryobi tire inflator for my car. And I just take that Ryobi battery I use in all those tools, I just pop it into the tire inflator, hook onto the nozzle on the tire, to the valve, and I squeeze the trigger, and it's a little handheld gun unit with a little PSI display. It's loud, and it pumps up my tires. I don't have to go looking for a gas station with a working compressor, because they're always seemingly out of order, or they charge money for it. So I have a series of Ryobi tools because they share that one battery. Johnny says, what hard drive are you using on this build? It's not listed. So I'm never quite sure if people aren't listening because I already explained it, or if maybe they're just joining us. And instead of taking the common courtesy to rewind to see what they missed, either they didn't listen or they won't go back. So again, this is an upgrade. And the NVMe drive that's in the 2015 build is going to get moved over so the customer doesn't lose their programs and data, which is what I already said. Icarana says, are you worried that Ryobi will update their product so that the new battery will not fit the old models? It wouldn't matter if they did. Let's just say, for example, Ryobi decides all 127 power tools that use this battery are now obsolete. Let's just say they would make a really stupid decision to piss off all of their customers and then try and resell them all the same tools they already have. I could go on Amazon and I can buy other brands of compatible 1+ batteries not made by Ryobi. And the batteries I have now are real Ryobi batteries, and they are lithium, and they will probably last me, I would say, at least 6 to 9 years before they need to be replaced. So who cares? No, I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. Do I have a battery-powered lawnmower? No, I do not. I do not own a lawnmower. Not too many people in Phoenix have a lawn. You can imagine when you have 100 days in a row of temperatures over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, how do you think a lawn survives? And there are some people that have a lawn. I will remind you that Lake Mead is at its lowest level it's ever been at. Lake Mead feeds the water needs of people in Colorado, Arizona, California, and Nevada. And it also powers a hydroelectric generator. And it's getting to the point now where it's almost not enough water to turn the wheels of the hydroelectric generator. So can you imagine living in a drought situation where water is becoming scarce in the desert and you've got a neighbor watering their lawn? I'm sure they're going to start passing laws making that illegal as this water shortage starts to impact people. It's bad. It's the worst it's been in my lifetime. I've never seen it this bad. And I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. But to use this precious water for your lawn, what a pointless. Worse is if somebody's watering their lawn in the afternoon, the water magnifies the rays of the sun and it burns the lawn. It literally burns it. It's not catching fire, but what it does is it just completely kills it. It turns it black, so, or dark brown. And you look at it and it looks burned. So people that do water their lawns are wasting water. People who do it in the afternoon in the summer heat are burning their lawns, and they're not going to have green grass. So what most people have in Phoenix is gravel landscaping, usually decorated with cactus, or not decorated at all, maybe just a bunch of little rocks. That's why you don't see the dogs here at Studio B. There's no yard for them. They're not going to have them stick their paws out on the rocks. And the plants, they have these little spurs. They'll dig right into your shoes and they'll dig into your feet. And I don't want my dogs coming in with that stuff in their feet. So that's why there's no dogs here at Studio B. There's no grass for them. So I do not have an electric lawnmower. Michael Dane says, if I could, I'd send you all this rain we're having now. We have a Noah's Ark watch going on now. Yeah, well, the western United States desperately needs water. William Dawson says, in the state of Florida, there are rules in place that say you can water on a set day and for a set time during a water shortage. California's already been through this in the past. All right, so we put the processor in. What was I going to do? I guess I can put the cooler. I can start putting the cooler on. This is a dead simple build. Anybody could build this computer. It's basically a high-end 8-year build. You wouldn't need to go to an 11900K. This cooler isn't going to keep the 11900K during a 20-minute Prime 95 test. It will fail that test. Just like any computer you buy at the store will also fail the Prime 95 test. I demonstrate the Prime 95 test to show that my computers are better than 90% of the computers that are pre-built that you can buy. Unless they come with a liquid cooler, it will likely fail this test. The computer you're running now might fail Prime 95 after 20 minutes. So I'm going to tell you right now, I don't expect this cooler to perform below 85 degrees Celsius after 20 minutes of Prime 95, and I'm not even going to test it because it will never be used. This customer will never use it like that. My office computer that I built the same setup, I never use it like that. If I'm rendering out a video, the temp jumps up a little bit, the fan gets loud, and then when the video's done rendering, everything quiets back down again. Just like any other computer. Spending all that money for cooling, for performance that you'll never ever use yourself except in benchmarking is great if you got the money to waste. But I don't want you to be confused that every computer I build has to have that qualification. It just so happens that I use extraordinary cooling on my builds universally. I think that the Mugen 5 is a universal tower air cooler for most AMD and Intel builds. And even in situations where the chip can get hotter than the cooler, that's only typically experienced during benchmarking. In real world usage scenarios, if the chip were to be pushed that hard, you will hear the fan crank up, and then whatever you're doing that's causing that will likely be done within a matter of moments, and then you'll hear the fan go back down. And it may ramp up and down because that's normal. The system's getting pushed hard, it ramps up, and then part of the process isn't so intense, and then it cools off. And then the process is intense again, and it ramps up, but it never crashes, it never overheats, and it runs pretty much the same as any computer that you would buy at the store with regards to cooling performance. In fact, it's still probably better than the junk they sell at the retail stores. But I might be biased when I say that. If I had a customer that used a computer so intently that they were constantly pushing the edge of the resources of the machine, creating a hot scenario, an overheating scenario, that customer needs a liquid cooler, and that liquid cooler I would advise to replace every 3 to 4 years. If that customer doesn't want to do that, then my advice is the customer finds somebody else to build their computer, because I don't need that harassment and that sort of demanding intolerance from a single customer. That is too demanding unless that customer was willing to pay me for every minute of my time now and into the future that they need it. So if the customers, in other words, they're saying they want a bunch, but they only want to pay a little and they want it their way, my advice is buy the computer from someone else, because you and I are not going to get along, and I'm going to really, really resent you for not having any consideration of the value of my time. And if you know so much, why don't you build it? Some customers will drive you right out of business if you let them. And rather than take their money and then argue with them, I'd rather say, take your money somewhere else. I appreciate that you thought of me. I don't want to get involved in this. I have too many other customers waiting. I can't have one customer just monopolize my time unless the amount of money I'm making is equal to all the money I'd be making from everybody else I am putting off. And it usually doesn't work that way. Usually those most demanding customers are the ones who want to spend the least amount of money. And I'm going to tell you, as a business owner, those are the customers that if you allow it, they will drive you out of business. And it's going to be your fault because you're the one who decided that that was going to be acceptable. Do you know how I know this? I've been doing this over 30 years, and I've seen it all. Well, I don't want to see it all. I've seen enough. I don't want to see any more. But boy, I've had some customers that you would think they were doing me a favor letting me build a computer for them. Aren't I lucky to have such nice customers looking out for me? I'm going to do you a favor, Carrie, and I'm going to let you work on my computer. Do me a favor and let somebody else work on it. What I'd like to hear is, I'm going to do you a favor and throw a little extra in on this bill. How often do you think that happens? Both scenarios do happen, and both scenarios are rare. These are the little plastic standoffs that I use to support one end of the motherboard that the Corsair 200R or any other case from NZXT or Fantex or pretty much any major PC case manufacturer typically doesn't have the mounting hole that Gigabyte puts, this additional mounting hole that I've never seen any other motherboard manufacturers use. And the only case manufacturer I've noticed that carries this extra hole is the cases made by Gigabyte. Now, if you're a home builder, you'll just leave that hole empty. Not every single mounting hole must have a screw, but if there is a standoff behind it, you'd be a fool not to secure it with a screw. That being said, I have these plastic standoffs from the 90s. They're just left over. We used to use them. We used to have just 1 or 2 screws hold a motherboard in, and the rest of the other mounting holes were using plastic standoffs that slid into key slots. And the motherboard would just slide in, and then you'd screw it down. And all I've done is I've cut the nub off of the end of the key slot to nylon standoff so that it has a flat bottom, and now it just supports the board there. But it's not critical. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that. But it's a nice way for me to keep them out of the landfill. It doesn't hurt anything to use it. And it doesn't hurt anything to not use it. So I use them because I got them. When I run out, I'm not going to go buy anymore. First of all, they're hard to find. And secondly, they're completely unnecessary. So I know when I put this into the 200R, getting up into this corner is going to be hard to hook up the CPU power. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm likely going to have to take this heatsink back off when it comes time to installing the board into the case. But I can't test the board and update the BIOS unless I have a heatsink on it. So I'm going to go ahead and install it now, knowing that I'm going to have to take it off. But when I take it off, I won't have to reapply heatsink. I won't have to reapply compound onto the CPU because I'm going to take it off, set it aside, and put it right back onto the same orientation it was. So whatever parts of the thermal compound came off on the heatsink and what stayed on the CPU will just line right back up when I put it right back on. As long as I don't touch it or manipulate it, I don't have to wipe them clean and start again because it's fresh. If I wanted to waste time and thermal compound, there's no harm in cleaning it. As long as you want to waste thermal compound and waste your time, go right ahead. This thermal compound's feeling a little bit dry. What did I just do with that tube? Put it away, didn't I? Gonna have to put a little bit more on there. Better to put too little and add some than to put too much and make a poor attempt at taking it off, taking off the extra. Which is basically finger painting the top of the CPU. You do not apply different brands of thermal compound. Never mix 2 thermal compounds together unless they're exactly the same. And we only apply thermal compound either to the CPU or to the heatsink. The reason I'm not applying it to the heatsink is I don't know where it needs to go on the heatsink to align with the CPU. If I cover the entire heatsink, it'll just hang off the edges and drip onto the board. Sometimes these heat sinks will come with pre-applied thermal compound, in which case you don't need to do any of this. You just install the heat sink, and then that spreads onto the CPU when the CPU gets hot. But by placing the thermal compound on the CPU, it will automatically align to what area of the heat sink it needs to be on once they make contact. There's no point in covering something with thermal compound that isn't making contact with the CPU. That's a waste of thermal compound and it's a mess you're going to have to clean up or live with if you're somebody who doesn't mind living in filth. It's time for my glasses. There it goes. Okay. So you just want to get it started, and we'll come around here. We'll get that bad boy started. There we go. And we just want to tighten them equally because we don't want this to sit where one side is getting warped or bent. You want to try and bring them both down about the same so that we have a complete flush fit of the bottom of the heatsink to the top of the CPU. So we just turn a few times on each side until the screws come to a dead stop. You'll just go back and forth. Yeah, and those have come to a dead stop, and I just want to double check these screws here on the brackets. Oh, I should have done that one earlier. That's okay. I can't really get to it, but it's good. It's good. And then this screwdriver can go in the box with the customer. We're done with that. We've got our CPU fan, which we can attach right now using 2 of these brackets. They give you 4 in case you want to put a fan on each side. I think that's a complete waste of time and money. It also adds to the noise and power consumption of your PC. So I would advise you not to use a 2-fan setup. If you require 2 fans for heat issues, that would suggest to me you have an inadequate heatsink. It's too small for your system. And if you got a heatsink that was the width of the size of what it is when the fan's attached, you wouldn't need the fan. Or you might need a liquid cooler. And that's usually only overclockers that experience that. So they bring it upon themselves and do it voluntarily. They're not subject to having to spend money as a victim who just got bad designed hardware. They made bad choices as a system builder. That's the way I see it. So I don't feel any sympathy for them when they do all this overkill cooling stuff, creating problems that they wouldn't have had they not created the problems. I like to zip tie this while the whole system's out of the case, because there's really no way to get in there once you're mounted into the case. I've got thermal compound that somehow got on my hands and it's sticky, and I want to get that off because everything I touch, it's leaving it behind. And then I have to clean everything I've touched. It's so messy. Even using the nitrile glove, you can see it still manages to get on my hands. It's not going through the glove. I guess I'm not paying close enough attention to where I'm touching some things. So that's why that happens. And let's clear this out of the way and clear this out of the way. Ray Burke says, "Hi, Carrie. When I updated my Gigabyte BIOS to the latest, I noticed it had a Windows 11 BIOS enable automatically. Had to disable it when I updated it, unsure about Windows Update." Well, you know how to answer that, Ray? Go to Windows Update. Sometimes people ask questions that they could answer themselves if they just try. Without knowing the make and model of your board, and even knowing it, I wouldn't be familiar with the settings of individual BIOSes from different models. The best thing you can do is just go to Windows Update and see. Is there some reason you haven't done that? Or some reason you're hesitating? What are you afraid is going to happen? What is the worst that could happen? I can speculate and give you an answer, but you could just run the test and get the exact answer without speculation. I have never seen a Windows update, not a Windows update, I've never seen a BIOS update where a setting is called Windows 11 in the BIOS. I've never, ever seen that. So I don't have a point of reference for even what you're describing. What I look for, like when we update this BIOS, it's not going to say anything about Windows 11. It's going to say Intel Trusted Platform Technology. What do they call it? Plus PTT, whatever that stands for. It'll tell us Platform Trust Technology, something like that. And that's what we need to disable if we want to make sure the motherboard stays non-compliant with Windows 11 or not compatible with Windows 11. This customer wants Windows 11 on it. So we would obviously want PTT to be left enabled. Bob R says F13 is the latest BIOS for that motherboard. Yeah, we're going to go look at that here. I'm going to show you how I do that in a minute. Once I can figure out how to open this package of RAM. Because apparently it's going to take a while. If you're able to get the parts out of the boxes, then you can build a computer. If you have enough skill and creativity and imagination and talent that you can open up these parts containers, then actually building the computer is relatively simple by comparison. Go faster sticker, throw that in the box. We're going to use the gray sockets first. Bending the package away from the RAM. I'm not bending the RAM. The package is worthless. The RAM is expensive. So I will bend the crap out of the package so I don't have to bend the RAM. You know, to get it out of the package. I'm just going to grab a power supply that I've got laying around here. It's a 500 watt. That's more than enough for this test. And we'll hook it up here. Probably would help if I put it on in the right direction. Whoever thought putting a black connector into a black plug on a black motherboard sitting on a black box was a good idea? It does make things harder to see. It does look better when it's done, but it does make working on it hard. Harder than it would be if they were brighter colors. This is our CPU connector. This provides power to the CPU. Every motherboard has to have these two connectors, or it ain't gonna worky. These wires always go towards the inside, towards the center of the board. In this connector, they don't go to the edge, they go towards this way. And this is my little remote power switch and LEDs here that makes it super easy for me to get this done quickly. And I use that when I'm testing systems out of the case, rather than individually hooking up each wire. I got tired of doing that after 25 years. And let's see, I got a video cable. Oh, keyboard and mouse, that's what I need. We got a keyboard and a mouse right over here. And I think that's all I need. Oh, I'm gonna need a power cable. Let me plug the keyboard and mouse into one of these USB ports. And I've got a power cable on the floor that I'm probably stepping on. Here we go. Stepping on all the trash I threw around. Make sure that power supply is off. Line that up, flip that switch on. Here we go. That is ready for its first power on test. Sometimes we call that the smoke test. If we turn it on and the smoke comes out, it won't work because it runs off of smoke. It needs the smoke to stay inside. Yeah, I just made that up. We want to power it on, make sure that it recognizes the RAM and the CPU. There's no bootable device. We did not install the NVMe drive. I set it aside. So there's no operating system for this to start to. And it should just take us into the BIOS. So let's go to the HDMI input coming off of this cable into the capture card. And then I'm going to take myself and move myself into a corner like that. And now I'm going to hit the power switch to, oh, I already did, to on. I'm going to hit the power button right over here, which is that one. And you'll see power lights have come on. The CPU fan is spinning, but you can't see it because it's facing away from the camera. Give the computer on a very first boot 60 to 90 seconds to train the CPU and RAM. It may turn off and turn back on again. It may not. It may turn off and turn back on again 3 times. Don't freak out. That's normal. Be patient. Wait 60 to 90 seconds. So everything we're doing is live, unedited, and is happening in real time. You see, it came up with a post screen, but then it just reset itself. That's normal. What it has done is it has trained the RAM and CPU, then tested them, said, okay, those settings are working. Now let's restart with those settings. And in just a moment, we should see that post screen again, and then it should realize it has nothing to boot to, and then take us into the BIOS where we can see what version of BIOS we have. Notice I'm filling the time by talking, but what I'm not doing is touching anything or manipulating anything. I'm giving the computer the time it needs to do whatever it needs to do to lead me to its final sort of, you know, it's done setting things up and leads me into the BIOS. Now this BIOS says we're running version F7. Is that the latest? How do you know? Well, I do it an old school method way, and that is I'm going to bring up a browser, and I'm going to share this browser screen with you. Here we go. And I'm going to go right up here, and I'm going to type in the make of the motherboard, or rather the model, B560HD3, and I'm going to search in Google. The very first link comes up from this website, gigabyte.com. I only want to download BIOSes from the manufacturer. Gigabyte is the manufacturer. That's why I like Google search. Other search engines may not list this link first. I'm going to click once on that link, and it's going to take us to the product page here on Google, or on Gigabyte's website. You'll see they've got a service and support button here. That's Gigabyte service and support. We don't want that. There's a support button down here. That is for B560HD3 specific product support. That's the one we want. Every motherboard manufacturer does this. Asus, ASRock, MSI, they all have a support up here and a support on the product page. Be sure to click the support on the product page. We're under downloads by default, and if we scroll down, we see there's an audio driver, a chipset driver, a LAN driver, SATA driver, VGA driver. BIOS shows there's 8 BIOSes available. We don't need 8 BIOSes, we only need the latest BIOS. So when I expand that BIOS thing out, it dropped the screen down, but now under BIOS we have F13, F10, F9, F8, F7. We have F7. We do not need F8, we do not need F9, we do not need F10. F13 contains all of the other BIOSes in it. Unless it says something over on the right that you must have, BIOS version something to have this one, that would be the only time that there would be any difference. It clearly doesn't say anything about that, so we just hit the download button, and it's going to save a very small zip file, which I'm going to extract. Now, once I have extracted the zip file, it's going to have some files in it. Let me show you. Where's my OBS? OBS. It gives us this EFI folder, this file called B560HD3.F13, this EFI flash PDF how-to document, and then a flash utility software. The way I'm going to show you how to do this, all you need is this one file. If you look at the size of the files, the biggest file is the actual BIOS. I'm going to right mouse click and choose copy. Now, I'm going to take an empty flash drive. I want it to be empty because I don't want to make a mistake and pick the wrong file. So when I copy the BIOS file onto this flash drive, it will be the only file on the flash drive. So I cannot make a mistake by picking the wrong file. This flash drive is labeled as a BIOS flash drive, and it is a 2 gig regular fat formatted drive. Some older motherboards won't see NTFS drives, or they won't see different formats or larger capacity flash drives. So if you've got a computer that's older and you're plugging a flash drive in it, it doesn't see it, says it's empty, that's because you're using a flash drive that's either too big or formatted in NTFS. A modern motherboard shouldn't matter. I'm going to plug the flash drive into the streaming computer that I'm using to download and demonstrate, the screen sharing and everything off of. And then I'm going to go to OBS again. And it opens a window of the flash drive. Oops, that's not it. This is it right here. So this is the flash drive. It's empty. I right mouse click and I choose paste. And it's going to copy that one file right here onto my flash drive. Once that is done, I can grab this flash drive and pull it out. You don't have to close anything. With Windows 10, it's no longer required. It's optional. I'm going to now take this flash drive and I'm going to plug it into any USB port on this computer that we've got just sitting here running at the BIOS screen. And I'm going to give that just a moment to communicate with the motherboard. They don't talk instantaneously. It takes about 15 to 45 seconds for the board to communicate, oh, you're a flash drive, what size are you, blah, blah, blah. And then when we go back to this other computer, right over here on the bottom right, it says Q flash or F8. Up here on the top left, it says BIOS version F7. It recognizes we've got an 11th gen Intel CPU that is recognized as an i9 11900K with 64 gigs of RAM. So all that is what we installed. So I go back to this bottom right, I hit Q flash, I choose to update the BIOS, and the only drive that is plugged into this motherboard is the flash drive. No other drive is installed. The contents of the flash drive are this one file. So I don't have to go searching for the right thing. I don't have to search for the right drive, the right folder, or the right file. I click twice on it, quickly, 2 quick clicks. And it says, are you sure you want to update? I say yes, or I click yes. It's going to verify that that BIOS file is intact and is compatible. It says here on the left, your current flash is an F7 with this date, and the one you're updating to is this version with this date. Press to start. So I press by clicking on that word or series of words there, press to start. And now I'd stay hands off and I'm patient to allow the board as much time as it needs to complete this process. Do not play with the mouse. Do not play with the keyboard. And if you cannot help yourself, go walk away. Perhaps a walk around the block, get some fresh air. By the time you come back, this is going to be done. It will wait indefinitely for you. So I think you could offer the same courtesy and wait reasonably a few minutes to allow this process to work without distraction or interruption. Distraction or interruption may result in bricking your motherboard, and then you will have to return the motherboard to the manufacturer. It's super easy if you just follow the easy steps. If you want to make it complicated and you want to make a mess out of it, that's your choice. On a Gigabyte motherboard, there is no option to turn on or off anything called TPM. I want to be clear with you. There is no TPM labeled option in a Gigabyte motherboard. Gigabyte, in its profound genius, has decided that the consumer needs to have a completely different set of letters. So Gigabyte calls it PTT, and that means Intel Platform Trust Technology, even though there's no I in PTT. It really just stands for Platform Trust Technology, of which TPM is a form of. I feel like if I talk slower, I will be better understood. Ryan with $2 Canadian said, I'll send you some water from the Great Lakes. Awesome. That's unsalted. You'll see the system has shut down and is restarting, and you see that I continue to leave my hands off of it. All of this is the normal process of updating a BIOS, and it does require some patience. The no signal that's on the screen is the video capture card. It would be the same as your computer monitor saying no signal if you turn your monitor on without turning on your computer. It's your monitor telling you, there's nothing for me to display. There's no information being fed to me. Because this motherboard is resetting and rebooting with the new BIOS, you have to give it some time for that process to complete. Not all motherboards take the exact same amount of time, and there are different size BIOSes and different complexities of applications. So all I can tell you is be patient. This video is being filmed live, unedited, and unscripted. So you're getting to see in real time how this BIOS applies to this motherboard. You'll see it took that long for the post screen to come up. I have not touched anything. We come back to the BIOS, and now in that upper left side we see it says F13 now, which is our latest BIOS. With that, I'm done with this BIOS flash drive, and I'm going to erase that single file on here so that the next time I need to flash a BIOS, this drive will be ready and waiting. When I go over to the video output of this system, the one thing I want to do is reset the BIOS to optimize defaults, which is right here on the bottom right. Load optimized defaults, yes. And if we go to advanced mode, which is the F2 button, or just click advanced mode, under settings, under miscellaneous, you'll see Intel Platform Trust Technology. PTT is TPM. TPM is PTT. Why did they make this so confusing? Normally, I disable this option so that the system will not be Windows 11 compatible, but that the end user can come into the BIOS and put that back to enabled if they decide one day they want Windows 11, which I assume will be somewhere between now and October 2025. This customer wants Windows 11 now. So we're going to leave that enabled, and then I will just move over to the right under Save and Exit, push Enter. It says, are you sure? Push Enter again. It saves the defaults that we selected, and it will restart one more time and lead us into the BIOS because it still has no storage device attached to it. So it has nothing to boot from. All it can do is go in the BIOS. With that, I can reach over and turn the power off on this unit. And this is prepped and ready to be installed into the upgraded system. So I'm going to take another system that I built in 2015, and I am going to disassemble it. But I'm going to leave the power supply in, and if there's any optical drive or anything like that, I'll leave that in. I'm going to pull all the cables off the board. I'm going to take the 6 or 7 screws out that hold the board in. I'm going to take the whole board out. I'm going to put this board in now that it's all prepped and ready to go. And I'm going to take the NVMe drive off of the old board, plug it into this board, hook all the wires back up, and turn the machine back on, and it should be ready to give to the customer. That should be that. There will probably be some drivers that have to be installed, but Windows 10 will handle that automatically. Just visit the Windows 10 update site, And I'll also check and use the Intel Driver Assistant, which should already be on there anyway. If it isn't, I'll add it, make sure that we have all the right drivers. It should just boot right up. I will have to purchase a new product code because the Windows 10 that it currently has will stay Windows 10 indefinitely. The Windows 10 product code is tied to each motherboard. What that means is this one will need its own Windows 10 code. And when I format or I replace the storage, like I'll take this new storage drive and I'll plug it into that old customer's board from 2015, then I'm going to grab my Windows 10 installation tool. And as soon as Windows 10 installs, I'll then plug it into the internet, go to Windows Updates, and on my first reboot, Windows will already have activated without me entering any product code. It'll recognize the fingerprint of the system, which is made up of the hardware serial numbers, so no two systems are the same. It'll say, oh, you've activated this motherboard before, and it'll reassign to me the product code that was entered back in 2015. The only time that won't work is if you use that same product code on multiple motherboards, then the product code will only reactivate on the last board it was activated on. If you haven't done that, then this process will work every single time you need to reinstall, and there's no limit to how many times you can reinstall it. It will reactivate and reassign your product key. You never have to enter your product key again. You do not need a Microsoft account for this to work. All right, so are there any questions about that? Zdravko says he's taken off for the day. We're just about done here anyway. I'll just check my email one more time. $25 contribution comes in from somebody who doesn't tell me their name. They say, can I be blue? Okay, I have to know who you are in the chat room. Thank you for sending the gift card. That one that Zdravko sent, I still haven't got. John Williams wants to know, why does some BIOSes say that they're in beta when they might be 4 or 5 years old? That means that they didn't have enough manpower. You have to pay an employee to write the BIOS. And this is not an entry-level employee. This is an expensive employee. And then you need to pay a series of employees to do quality control checking. Now, if you have a motherboard that's more than 5 years old, the company isn't going to assign any of its working task force on the clock that they're paying good money to anything but ultra-critical situations. Company could go bankrupt doing that. That's why I say the company should charge for these BIOS updates, and Windows should charge for Windows updates. The minute you start charging people for things, people will see value, and they won't think, oh, these updates are bad. So here's what usually happens. Somebody bought the board years earlier. Sorry about that. Someone bought the board years earlier, and they encountered a situation that's uncommon. It may be because of the hardware configuration, or the software, or a little of both, but something that nobody had ever done before. And that resulted in a problem. And they complained to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer decided to go ahead and address that issue with a BIOS update, but to not fully vet it out, just to go, here, this is for you, and for anybody else like you that might experience the problem. We're going to label it as a beta because we don't want anybody else to download it, and if they do download it, it's at their own risk. If the problem becomes ubiquitous and a lot of people are having it, then the company will spend the money that they don't want to spend to then go through all the final quality checks, which is very time consuming and very expensive, to authenticate the BIOS as a final product and no longer a beta. But if it's just a handful of users that complain, then that BIOS is for them, and they just leave it up there indefinitely and they abandoned it. It's all about money. If the manufacturer was making money from the BIOS, then they would have the staff to always have all BIOSes updated regardless of the age of the motherboard, so long as you were willing to pay for it. But as long as they're doing it as a service, they prioritize it based on the likelihood, the expense, and the number of people they can help, as well as how critical the problem is. They will have more resources available to new products that require BIOS updates. As the system ages, it only becomes a cost center for the manufacturer. They want you to buy a new board. In general, you should not be downloading a beta BIOS unless it's addressing a specific problem you're having, because it may not, the BIOS may cause other problems. They haven't tested it to be sure. But if you're having a problem, then you've got nothing to lose by putting the beta BIOS on. If you're not having a problem and you put the beta BIOS on and now you have a problem, that's your fault. So that the beta is important to know so that you can make the right decision and understand the consequences and the risks. Sergio wants to know, by taking a bootable drive out of a computer and putting it into another computer, will the drivers and whatnot on one computer interfere with the drivers on the other? Well, if this was 1995, I would say yes. However, the information many of you are receiving on the internet is more than 20 years old, or it's coming from people who are still propagating 20-year-old information, and you're hearing it for the first time, and you don't know that that's 20-year-old obsolete information. My advice to you is to try it yourself and see what your experience is, and then share that with us. I've done this enough times that I fully expect, I don't have any control over it, but I fully expect, because we're going from one Intel system on a Gigabyte board to another Intel system on another Gigabyte board, that by simply replacing, or not replacing, but removing the storage drive from the old board and plugging it into the new board, it's simply going to ignore the drivers that don't apply and reinstall drivers that do. So there may be a little bit of leftover detritus regarding drivers that aren't being used, but their little files are still going to be on the drive. When you had a 40 megabyte hard drive, that could add up to some usable space that you want back. When you're running a 500 gig hard drive, the amount of space it's consuming is probably less than the size of your cookies or other files that you don't think anything of. So at the end of the day, there's no guarantee it will work, but in most situations it'll work just fine. But it really doesn't matter if it works fine for me. What matters is if it works fine for you. So no answer I can give you can change that reality that you have to experience yourself on the unique hardware that you own and are moving one item to another. because the hardware you have doesn't match the hardware I have. And your software that you've installed doesn't match the software I've installed. And the drivers you have don't match the drivers I have. So not only on the old system, but also on the new system. So those variables are going to determine your outcome, not my outcome. And my my marble mouth, my variables have no impact on your experience to the hardware you have. Most of the time, it's going to work just fine in my experience. It's very rare that that won't work. But if we were talking in 1995, different story. Progress. Too many people online are hobbyists, enthusiasts, and they practice rituals, and they don't really understand why they practice the rituals. That's just what they were taught. So if somebody were to say to you, you shouldn't move the drive from one computer to another because it could corrupt, or it could have drivers that interfere and be unstable, ask them when they learned that. And I suspect they'll say it was 20 or more years ago. And then you can tell them, do you think that's changed in the last 20 years since you were taught? Be kind of curious what they think. Because there's a big difference between Windows 95 and Windows XP and Windows 7 and Windows 10. And the differences in between those is pretty minor. But those are your major evolutions of Windows. And Windows 10 is a far different experience than Windows XP with regards to reliability and crashing and drivers, big time. Windows 10 does a much, much better job. The cache in Windows 10. Should you delete the cache on the motherboard? No. If you, sometimes frustrates me. And let me explain to you why. So I am a teacher. You are my student. And I'm teaching you this process. And you have taken something out of your imagination that I didn't talk about, and you want to ask me if it's necessary. So from my perspective, if I'm the teacher and you're the student, if that was necessary, wouldn't I have already told you that? Do you think I am withholding information? Do you think there are added steps you need to take that I am withholding from you? But if you ask me the right question, then you'll get the secrets that I'm not telling? That wouldn't make me a very good teacher. The entire process has been described in detail. Any question you have outside of that process, the answer is no. It is not necessary. It is not recommended for you to follow any other steps other than the ones that I have instructed. If you choose to, you may do whatever you want. I'm simply sharing with you the information as I believe is beneficial and required to accomplish the task that I am trying to teach. I do not leave out any information that is required, or the lesson would have no value to any viewer. Mark Leibowitz says, until I saw this for myself, I'd have said moving a boot drive to another system doesn't work. But I've done it several times now in Windows 10, and each time, Windows 10 found what it needed and worked just fine. It's not guaranteed though, Mark, but it likely just works fine. Yeah. Rock Legend says, Carrie, I'm having problems with an Asus 390E Windows 10 install. You're going to have to be more specific. What are you trying to do, and what is the exact problem you're experiencing? Jimmy Gray says, I've got 3 Windows 10 computers and I've never had a system crash. That's pretty normal now with Windows 10. Very few people could say that with Windows XP or Windows 95. You can see the operating systems are getting better and better. Other technical questions for me? It's almost 4 o'clock and I'm about ready to wrap up today's live broadcast. But if you have questions, I'd be happy to address them now before I say goodbye. And I know some people feel like my answers are mean, but please understand that the way that I was raised is my mother was very direct. She wasn't hurtful, she was direct. And she has taught me to be direct. So when I am being direct with you, I am giving you the time of day to answer your question free of charge because I care enough to provide it to you. That even includes corrections of misunderstandings, or if I have to say something 2 or 3 times because for some reason you're not hearing it, I'm going to complain that I have to say it a 4th time, but I'm still going to say it and give you your answer. So please don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't think less of people based on the question. I think less of people who are afraid to ask. Carrie, when you were a teacher, I bet students lined up to get in your classroom. It didn't exactly work that way. Students had to sign up for classes. They didn't know who their instructor was going to be. Boy, that sure would have been nice if I had students just signing up for any Carrie Holzman class. No. Kimosabi says, you're very kind compared to my chemistry teacher. Katrina H says, that was crystal clear about IPTT, sublettering TPM. Carrie, great job. Smile and claps. Katrina gets it. Morton says, I like your answers. They're straight with no chaser. There you go. That's it. Rock Legend says, it's having stable issues after I load Windows 10. Usually that's an indication of bad RAM. I have a video about how to use memtest 86, where you can download it, create the bootable flash drive. I demonstrate every step of the process and have that run so you can identify or verify that you have bad RAM installed. Carrie Chasen says, Carrie didn't like my humor. This is the first thing I've seen from you today. We have a chat room that has a lot of participants in it and that moves rather quickly through the messages. And if they scroll off the screen, I don't see them. So you shouldn't assume I've read your message unless I've acknowledged it. Damian Jez contributed $10 and said, hey, Carrie, I rarely have time to participate in live chat, so here's a little something. I hope everything is well, and thank you for the Acronis offer. Well, thank you, Damian. I appreciate your support. Sorry I missed that contribution a little earlier. Andrew Epperson contributed $2 earlier that I missed. Says, simplicity combats piracy. For sure. Well said. Well said. Well said, well stated. Proud Patriot with $5 says, Carrie, I took advantage of that Acronis discount last week. It went so smoothly that I did it again before the discount expires. Awesome. Glad you took advantage of that. Glad you're showing some love to Acronis. They're showing support and they're showing love to us. George Schlocks with a $5 contribution. Andy Kane with a €5 contribution says every little helps. Thanks for all you do and have done for all of us. It's a great community to be a part of. Right on. Thank you, Andy. We're glad you're a part of this amazing community. You're part of what makes it so amazing. Mike Visions with a £5 contribution says, good day. Here's a few pennies for the channel. Boy, I missed a lot of contributions today. Thank you, Mike Visions. Roy Starman with a $10 contribution says, good afternoon, and sorry I am late. Sorry I'm late announcing your contribution, but thank you. And then, of course, XRod666 with his $10 contribution saying, happy Friday and nice to see you. Wonderful. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for your patience as I work through that backlog there. Do you think MemTest86 will work with ECC memory? I do believe that it does. I think it specifically states that on the MemTest86 website. Did you even look before you asked? As a reminder, we have a couple deals happening right now with some friendly sponsors that are friendly to the channel and friendly, well, to all of you, right? You're part of the channel. And there's 3 of them. Of course, the folks at RoboForm are offering you universally 30% off of RoboForm. You just go to roboform.com/carry. You don't have to enter any coupon code. That link is all you need. We have our ongoing offer with CDK Deals, where you can buy Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2016, Office 2019, or Office 2021 with 30% off using the coupon code CARRY. Please follow my videos on how to obtain the installation files safely from the proper source. And please follow the installation instructions that I give in my videos. So if you're looking to how to install Windows 10, follow my video. How to install Microsoft Office, search for that on YouTube with my name and you'll see my video specifically demonstrating how to download the installation files safely and then how to install them in the right order, saving your product key as the last thing you do. And you shouldn't have any problems. Finally, a super thanks and shout out to our good friends at Acronis. If you've been watching this channel for some time, you've seen me using Acronis going all the way back over a decade. So, well, I don't know that did I show Acronis back in 2009? I was certainly using it. I don't remember if I've made videos. I even wrote articles back when I was doing journalism for trade magazines and wrote articles about Acronis in 2009 from like CMP, I think is the name of the company that ran the trade magazine. If you Google search it, you'll find I've written a ton of articles from Tom's Hardware to Smart Computing to trade publications like CMP and Electrical Engineering, what's it called, IEE or EE, I don't know. It's a pretty propeller head trade magazine for engineers. And all that's all still out there online. All that stuff I did all those years ago is still out there back when I was doing the writing, including the books I had available over at Amazon. Not that I'd recommend you buy those books. They're well out of date. But it just goes to show my history in this industry, right? Unlike a technical hobbyist or enthusiast that has a YouTube channel, I actually am in the industry. So I hope that adds a little weight to the information I provide, a little gravity to my perspective and how it applies in the real working world of professional work. Seems redundant. The folks at Acronis are offering you 40% off any Acronis product. So that means you can get a regular 12-month subscription to Acronis for just $29.99. If you had to put a value on your data, would you pay $29.99 for your data? If you say, well, I'd pay $29.99 once, but only once. Okay, so your data's never going to change. You're never going to have any more. Yeah, your data that you have now, you're just going to back it up one time. Oh, no, I'm going to pay it once, but I expect to back it up indefinitely. So you're saying your data's worth $29.99 this year, but next year it's worth nothing? It's not worth another $29.99 or $49.99? And the year after that? Some people have this mentality that they're going to buy this one thing and they're going to make it last as long as possible. And their logic is they're sticking it to the man, when the truth is they're sticking it to themselves. One of the benefits of having a subscription, especially to something as important and critical as your data, is that you're getting not only security updates, but feature and enhancement updates to the software. Let's say, for example, and this has happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to all of us, you were to buy a perpetual license of Acronis in 2015. In 6 months after you bought it, or 6 weeks after you bought it, Acronis 2017 is announced and released. You don't get that. You now have to buy another perpetual license. Well, why would I need 2017 if I've already got 2016? Well, they didn't just change the number. Sometimes technology comes out, like an NVMe drive. Do you think Acronis 2013 or 2014 can see this NVMe drive? It doesn't know to look for it because the engineers didn't have crystal balls. Don't go there. They didn't have the ability to see the future and write drivers for technology that hasn't been invented yet. So now you've got this old version of Acronis and it can't see where your data is. So you have to buy another version of Acronis that's been updated. Or maybe you'd like to put your data out in the cloud, but those earlier versions of Acronis didn't offer that. It's not an add-on feature. You have to buy a current version to allow for that current feature that didn't exist years ago. So what a subscription will do for you is no matter when you buy the product, as soon as that product is updated, even to a different entire version, like let's say you buy Acronis, and they used to throw the year in it, so let's say you're buying Acronis 2022, and we're in May of 2022, and traditionally the new version of Acronis comes out in November, that would be 2023. If you didn't have a subscription, you'd already be a version behind in November. And whatever new bells, whistles, and features and compatibilities they have added, you don't get, unless you're on a subscription. If you're on a subscription, not only do you get all the updates for your current version, you are also going to get the new version at no additional cost when it is released. Now, if you take that $29.99 and you divide that by the 12 months we have in a year, you bring up my calculator. I just want to figure out who's the one being unreasonable, me or you. $29.99, we're going to divide that by 12 months. That is $2.50. I mean, it's a little less, but we're going to round up to $2.50 a month. So at $2.50 a month, no, that's not an accurate way to do this. Let's say there's a total price of $29.99 with the discount code, and we want to know what our price per day, so there's 365 days. It appears to be 8 cents a day, 8 pennies a day to not only back up your data, it backs up your entire hard drive. That is complete and total data recovery. Complete and total, your windows, your programs, your activations, everything gets backed up for 8 cents a day for a year. So why is it okay for you to pay 8 cents a day for a year, but on year 2 you think it should be free? I don't get it. you must not value your data. Now, I don't care if you use Acronis to back up your data. You can use whatever you want. But with Acronis, you back up the entire hard drive. And if you back it up to the cloud, you don't have to buy a backup drive. And while the initial backup might take a couple days, just leave the computer on, let it run. It'll back up in the background, and it'll automatically update the backup so you don't have to think about it. It won't interrupt you, it won't interfere with you, and you won't even know that it's running. And then, when that unexpected event happens, and trust me, it's always unexpected. It never happens to me until it happens to me. All those things that happen to other people, they don't happen to me until they happen to me. And it will happen to you. If you don't believe it's going to happen to you, good luck. Because if believing in it actually made a difference as to whether or not it would happen, I'll be right there alongside of you in my delusion of reality. My positive thinking is going to manifest into never experiencing data loss. If only life were that simple. You can say it hasn't happened yet, but most of you probably can't even say that. Once you've suffered data loss, you are the only one who suffers, unless you're a company, in which case your employees and your customers suffer too. But if you're a home user, nobody suffers but you. And if you're willing to suffer for $29.99, boy, I'll tell you what, have at it. I think it's an incredible deal. I think they're practically giving it away. I know it sounds like a sales pitch. I use the product. You'll see me use the product not only for my own data backup needs, but for cloning purposes. How many times have you seen me clone a drive? How many times have I replaced drives in laptops? How many times have I done that? In desktops? Countless. This channel has videos going back all the way to 2008. I'm showing hard drive docks. Why do I have the hard drive docks? I'm showing external NVMe enclosures and external 2.5-inch enclosures. Why? Those are for backups. But what good is the backup without backup software? Sure, you can back up your data, but you'll have to reinstall everything from scratch. And the amount of time it'll take you to do that, I can have my complete hard drive restored with all Windows updates, all programs, every setting, my font size, my desktop wallpaper, all my data, all my music, everything restored, and it'll likely take under 30 minutes, and all I have to do is click a button and walk away. You, on the other hand, will sit there for hours and hours putting everything back for $29.99. Well, good on you. You saved $29.99. I wouldn't want to trade places with you because I don't know where I would have the time, and I would be very, very angry. I'd be very angry. So, some people, you gotta let them fall down. They're just not gonna believe. I never fall. I never fall. I've been walking upright my whole life and I have never fallen. You will fall. And my question to you is, do you have insurance? Acronis is insurance for your data. And if you can afford data recovery, you can certainly afford Acronis. And if you cannot afford data recovery, then you can't afford to be without Acronis. It's not a sales pitch. That's truth. Prove me wrong. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you to all my generous contributors today, from Luke Greenia and Peter Laycock, Marioel, Damian Jez, Ryan in Canada, Judy Manning and Andrew Epperson, Proud Patriot and George Schlocks, Bob R. and Andy Kane, Lucas Dury and Channel Zero, Ian Gooch and Mike Visions, Robert Kachna and Roy Starman, along with XRod666. If I missed any that happened before that, I didn't have my viewer activity tab selected and YouTube won't show it to me. But I do appreciate each and every one of you, all my friends in blue. Those of you who are not yet blue, All you have to do to be blue is be a regular in the chat room. Join us on a regular basis. Say hello and be friendly. We just want friendly people. I don't care about your age. I don't care about your race. I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your gender. I don't care if you're dumb, and I don't care how smart you are. All I care about is, are you a nice person? Are you supportive? Are you kind? If so, we need more of you. Please, please come back and become a regular. I want to turn everybody blue. I will see you all again on Monday. I think I should be back on Monday. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.